call this meeting to order for 2025 budget work session agenda. This is number 6. This date is Thursday, September 19, 2024. It's 5:02 p.m. here in the Nat U Hill room. I want to welcome all who either are here with us or will watch this later in its recording. I want to note that here in the Nat U Hill room, we have Counselor Iverson, Counselor Wiltz, Counselor Crossley. We've got Counselor Munson, Counselor McKim. I am Trent Deckard. And want to note for the record that Counselor Hawk is not here, but I believe we expect her. All right, let's move to number 2 on our agenda, adoption of agenda. Does any council member wish to add or remove an item from tonight's budget work session agenda? They're quiet as mice. They're meted out. All right. Well, if there are none, I'll take a voice vote to adopt the agenda as so indicated. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It's unanimously adopted. Let's move to item 3, and this is me reading a lot of things that will mean more to the public watching and less to the folks in the room, but maybe a good reminder. I want to welcome everyone to the 2025 budget review work session. I want to remind council members and the public that during these sessions, this is our 6th session, final session, we'll review and discuss departmental budgets that are presented. This is not, let me repeat, this is not the final approval of the 2025 Monroe County annual budget, nor is it the formal budget hearing. The public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October 8th at 5 p.m., and the budget final adoption will occur on Monday, October 28th at 5 p.m. The public can make comments regarding a budget during those meetings. As we begin, a department will be invited to join us to present their budget and say words they believe are appropriate. As a reminder, departments have been allotted an amount of time for their budget review. This is based on times from previous years. As always, the council may extend that time as needed. However, we need to be mindful of the time and keep our discussion focused on the budget request presented. And I'm very proud to say that we have tried to do that pretty well, but I believe every counselor to some extent has been an offender on that. So we're all guilty together. If a non-budget topic requires further dialogue, I can always ask council staff members to reach out to department heads to schedule a discussion at the next available council meeting. During a department's review, they may be asked to explain any increases, decreases, or additions to their 2025 budget. Council members will then be given the opportunity to ask questions. Any council member can make recommendations to increase or decrease account lines based on the discussion and or need of the department. Council then will vote to approve moving forward with the department's reviewed budget request. You'll hear a vote. Maybe councilors vote for it, maybe they don't, but that does not indicate final approval. Again, that will occur later on October 8th after our public hearing. And with that, I think that reading is probably every council member could do that from memory, but I wanted to make sure we're okay at this point. I also want to note for the record, Counselor Hawk is with us now. Councilor McKim.
I was told by a member of the public that the audio was really difficult to hear on Zoom or on Teams. So I don't know if there are any issues, if that's being monitored from the booth.
Just tonight, specifically?
Just generally? Or?
I've noticed that
Right
in
now.
recordings of videos, when someone's speaking, the microphone will cut out and come back in, cut out and come back in. So those are minor issues. I think you can get the gist of it, but, you know, in case.
Yeah. If we can kind of monitor that, TSD, and certainly members of the public, if you are having trouble hearing us, certainly let us know, and we will work to address that. Council members, I'm going to remind you of this. Try to get that mic and bring that as close to your mouth as possible. Just know it will pick up your incidental whispers and or exclamations or thoughts. But I think it's important the public hear us on all these issues. Okay? All right. At this point, I'd like to give Michelle and the auditor, of course, an opportunity to briefly update us on any changes made at previous reviews and to update us regarding changes made to the draft 4B.
Good evening, council. I wanted to update you with regards to the additional appropriations for general fund. There was a question at Tuesday's meeting regarding the public defender's additional appropriation request. And both Bree and I went back and reviewed our paperwork that was turned in. And that was not part of that report. Apparently, that additional appropriation request came after they had already submitted the paperwork. And I think that issue arose, after all of that. So that has been included in this amount here on line 13 or line 6. So that does reflect that additional appropriation in the general fund. And that's the only change we made. There was no changes from last week's Thursday meeting.
Reminds me I need to open our Teams link, just generally. All right, councilors, any comments or questions there? Councilor Iverson.
I will just note, for those of you who've been watching all 6 meetings, you'll note that the numbers have been changing, and as we make work here, you'll see that particularly in the general fund, that's increasingly looking healthier and healthier. So we got more work to do, though.
We're always messing with the mud ball to get this cleaned up and on to the public, then on to the next budgets. Any other comments? Councilor Hawk.
Could you read to us that bottom line that because I can't see it from here?
I cannot myself, and I'm not going to pull
On
up.
the general fund,
Yes.
238 minus $238,457.
456.
What color is that?
Red. It's the
Red.
well, it's in red. Sorry, I'm sorry. It's the purple line.
Purple.
No, it's the white
Can you
line
zoom
above
in
the purple
on
line.
the-
And above the purple.
You're not doing it?
Oh, okay, I can't even see that it's
There,
red.
yeah, I zoomed it in
That's
a
better.
little.
Okay, 238. Okay.
But it's
So quite a bit different from when we
Negative.
started.
Yeah, significantly.
Yes.
And the bottom line for the total frozen levy is also much improved.
I'm actually kind of amazed
Yeah,
that we did that.
it's a process. All right, any other comments or questions? Councilor Wiltz, did you have something?
No.
Nope. Just thinking it through.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. All right, we're figuring it out as we go. And by the way, we do this in public. This is right here in public. That's what you're watching, all this happening. All right, so if there's nothing else, I don't want to take up any more time. We'll get to what we need to do tonight. We will next move over to department updates. You're seeing that a little bit differently, and the reason being is the treasurer did not get an opportunity to be with us on her budget night due to illness, and we wanted to invite her back to offer some words today. Ms. Smith?
Good evening, everyone.
Good
My
evening.
voice is still a little yucky, although I'm way better. I've been sick a long time. Came back from vacation, and all my department pretty much have been out with COVID, and it's hit the auditor's office real heavy, so we've really had a tough time right here at budgets. I want to address you on 2 things. 1, interest rates, and 2, I want to use my experience a little bit to tell you what I think is a good way to head for the county that I think, and hope that you will consider my long term here in the important jobs that I've had and what I've seen. So first, I want to talk about interest rates. What we commonly call the Fed is basically the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, of course. They meet to talk about interest rates in these meetings called Federal Open Market Committee meetings, which include the Federal Reserve members and 4 other Reserve Bank presidents and the Bank of the Federal Reserve President of the Bank of New York. The other ones rotate. So this group looks at the economic climate of the United States and tries to steer us into a real safe and prudent path. Currently, this group is looking to right-size the U.S. inflation to around 2%. It's not been able to do that. It's getting closer. It's getting better because we had some pretty significant inflation. But they attempt to do this by making policy changes and working with important people in the banking industry to adjust things to make really that happen, make it the best climate that we can have economically. So when this Federal Open Market Committee meets with these 12 members, the 7 members of the Federal Reserve and the other bank presidents, they meet to decide what is best for for everyone involved. Everyone from the person trying to buy a new car, to try to get a house, to try to finance a multi-million-dollar manufacturing facility. So we're all in it's the same market. So basically what they do is they look at the risks and they look at the climate and they see what needs to adjust for their little different measurements, and they set a borrowing rate to either make it go up or make it go down or adjust these factors. But anyway, all for about basically consumer protection and community development. And so what they do is they meet about once a month, and they don't always meet. They meet at least 10 times a year. But they've been holding the interest rate steady now for many, many months. And as I told you last time I talked to you, I expected them to drop the interest rate. They didn't do it. Chairman Jerome Powell said last time they met last month that they would definitely do it this time. And the 6 other voting members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, when they had this meeting, they did vote to reduce it yesterday by 50 basis points, or 0.5%. First time this year, of course. The only dissenting vote was Michelle Bowman, who was in favor of only decreasing it 0.25%. So what does that tell us for how we move forward in this budget year? It tells us that inflation is still an important factor, and it's more of an important factor in growing communities. When you have a community that is shrinking, you actually tend to see cost shrinking. But in Monroe County, we're attracting retirees. We're not just attracting college students. We're attracting lots of new people to move into Monroe County. So what do they bring with them? Well, they bring their income with them, which goes back to the county and the city and the other taxing units in the form of local option income tax. And so that helps us in more ways than just the taxes that we receive through property taxes, which are usually capped at a 4% increase somewhat by the state Department of Local Government Finance. So we pretty much always have that buffer of growth, but then what blesses our county is we're having all this new construction and all these new people moving in. It's almost become like a mecca in Indiana to move to Monroe County, if you can afford it. Now, a lot of people say you can't afford it, but the people who are making the money and paying loads of this tax, this local income tax, they can afford to live here, and they're bringing their monies with them. So where are we going to grow next year? Okay, we know we're going to grow 4% or around 4% in property taxes, and no matter what the assessed value does, it's 4% of last year, pretty much, right? So we can't always look at assessed value. We really have to look at the growth quotient, and that's an average of the last 10 years. But where we're blessed is we're attracting people who make more money and they can pay more of these taxes. So how does that help you as a county council? And after 12 years in the auditor's office and 8 years prior as treasurer, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of things move all different directions. In addition, when I went to grad school in business, I went in the Carolinas, which is the banking center. I went to Wake Forest. So I know a lot about banking. I know a lot about investing. And I don't like to lose my own money, and I certainly want to lose a penny of yours. I see moving forward, we're not going to trend up in interest rates. We're going to trend down a tiny bit, but remain flat. We're not going to really take these big hits because we're not shrinking that inflation to 2% like the Fed wants. And the reason why is people went without buying stuff for a while. And now that they have these better incomes, people are just buying a lot of stuff. And that means Christmas is going to be good. And as the interest rates do drop a small amount, these people have been sitting here waiting for these interest rates to go down. They're going to be jumping on new house sales. So new house sales will pop up again. So that's good for our county, right? That's good growth. I say all that because when I was doing my budget, I understand that you want to try to map raises it correlate with inflation, which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? And that's why we work so hard to right-size all these studies that we did and get the raises and get these salaries correct, so that people could afford to live here and stay with Monroe County. So we'd have institutional knowledge. We'd have great people for the future. I'm afraid if we move forward and we move away from that wonderful work that you guys have already done this last couple of years, which by the way, really impresses me, and I'm very proud of every one of you. I'm afraid with the people in my department who are higher level, Pats, if they get a different raise than the people who are comments, I'm afraid it's going to once again build ill will amongst the ranks. So I implore you from the bottom of my heart, with my 20 years of experience running, the finances in this county, to really consider a 4% across the board raise for everyone, so that no one gets more and no one gets less. I feel like in the last 9 months, 6 to 9 months, I've seen a renaissance of people loving to work for the county again. People being proud to be here. People feeling like you really had their back and you really want them to live inside county limits. And that makes me feel good, because I want to live here. I'm trying to sell stuff in Indianapolis so I can not have a tie to them anymore. I loved it. I moved here in '98 to move to this county, and I love this county. And I know it's hard if you're looking for a new house to find one that's affordable here. However, if we drop salaries or we raise them inconsistently, I'm afraid it's going to continue the trend that we did have of people leaving for better jobs instead of enjoying the benefits of Monroe County government. So again, my ask is 2 things. One, that don't get too worried about the interest rates, because we had several ones that dropped off at lower rates, way below what the Fed's offering now, and so you don't really worry about losing money that way, and that you consider the same raise for every single person under the Monroe County government umbrella. And I thank you very much for letting me come back and talk to you at a later date. It means a lot to me. Questions?
Right. Thank you very much, Kathy. Okay. All right. Well, with all that in mind, we will move on to this budget. We do want to know item 6 is a repeat back. Most council members are familiar with this, but let me just read some language here to explain this for anyone wondering at home. On Tuesday, September 17th, this council approved the advertisement of a correctional center lit at the rate of 0.175%. Upon further review since that meeting, it was determined that a new rate needs to be identified by this council. I'd like Molly Turner King to kind of give us an update why that is, and why identifying a new rate is necessary, and what actions council needs to take to remedy the situation. And so by virtue of that, I would like unanimous consent to open for discussion the approval of ordinance 2024-43, an ordinance modifying local income tax. Any objections?
None.
All right, we're open. Ms. Turner King, can you kind of pick up from there and explain for folks who watch this be well narrated why we're talking about this briefly during this budget hearing?
Yes. So after Tuesday's meeting, I started to prepare the ordinance for advertisement, and I was preparing a 0.175 rate. Upon reviewing the statute and conferring with DLGF, the Department of Labor and Government Finance, it was decided that the rate needs to be in an increment of 1/100th. So the rate either could be 0.17 or 0.18, but it cannot be 0.175. And so what I have done is I've prepared 2 ordinances, one for a 0.17 and one for a 0.18 rate, and whatever rate council approves me to advertise, I will advertise tomorrow, and then it should not impact our timeline at all. Our public hearing should still be held on the 7th as we originally planned.
All right. So pretty clear there. What we've done is we had an idea and the legislature said, your idea needs to be more like this or this. All right. Council discussion. Councilor Munson?
I'm happy to offer a modified resolution or amendment. Is this an amendment, Ms. Turner King?
Only one.
It would be a motion to authorize the advertisement of a new rate. So it's not really an amendment.
Okay. So I move that we offer a new rate and that rate be 0.17, staying within the required 100s.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. We'll go to discussion upon that amendment, and I want to note a point of clarification. Councilor Munson, do you mean that rate to also include the special lit changes that were in the original resolution as well?
Which exactly like our original resolution, except for the thousandths issue.
And if it helps, my plan is to take the exact same resolution that was previously published as a 0.2 rate, take the 0.2 language out and insert 0.17. So the special purpose tax will still be adjusted accordingly.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Council discussion. Councilor Hawk.
Yes, really having enough time to give some thought as to what we were doing. When the vote was taken the other day, I walked into the room thinking I was not going to support the jail tax because I felt like we could do the jail with the edit tax, and yet I wanted to be a part of supporting others. But this has given me pause here because I heard from the county commissioners they plan to move forward with a location that I can't support, and that also included that we would have to move forward with moving the courts at the same time. So I'm just not going to support any increase in the jail tax at this time. I know that's not going to make a bit of difference to anyone else, but to me. So I'm going to do what I walked into the meeting the other day to do, which was not support the jail tax.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilor Iverson.
Yeah, I am going to be very happy to support this. I think that this achieves the two goals that I had articulated the other night, where it's a revenue sufficient for us to meet our programming goals, and it moves us forward within the timeline that we had advertised.
Other council comments? All right. And so I think without much fanfare here, we can dispatch with this. Do we need to formalize that vote?
Yes, please.
All right. Can I do a voice vote? No roll call? All right.
Roll call. Yeah.
We'll go to a roll call on that vote.
Counselor McCann,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes. Oh, pardon me. No.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
And we will just, to double the record, because I know this is important, Councilor Hawk was no on that. The remaining were yes. And I want to make sure that those votes are always clear for the public record for those who really want to be clear on that.
I want it to be on the record that I am not against the jail project. I'm against raising the jail tax to cover it, because we do have the edit tax that could cover it.
All right. So now we will move past item 6 and return to regular budget items that we had. And that is item 7 is the auditor's office.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1000-0002, General Fund Auditor, with a category request of personnel, $1,243,518, supplies, $131,000, services 0, capital 0, for a total budget of $1,374,518.
Second.
All right. And with that, we will welcome our auditor, Bree Gregory, to take it from there.
Great. Thank you very much, Council. Just want to start by thanking you for being here, which is, I think, is our 9th meeting in the past 3 weeks. So thanks for hanging in there. Mine is going to be short and sweet. I believe I do have a few changes There's, due to a 35 to 40-hour increase, there's a slight increase to the internal auditor's salary. Another change, I have moved the GIS representative into the general fund because it's not sustainable where it was previously in my plat book fund. And then finally, we've also increased our postage line because we are not requiring departments to submit postage with their claims any longer. So we anticipate that cost going up. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll go to questions from council. I'm looking around for anyone. I know folks are taking a look at this. Yes, Councilor Wiltz.
Yeah, I just want to hear a little bit more about the GIS representative. You said that, so 50% was in, it says 1181. Which fund is that?
That's the plat book fund.
Plat book, but it's not sustainable there.
There's a current cash balance in the plat book fund of $48,335.
And what else comes out of the plat book fund?
Not a lot. The revenue comes from property transfers. It's $10 per legal description. What I would like to do is build up this fund a little bit because we would like to digitize our property transfer records, which has not yet been done, and it's going to be very costly. So, I mean, clearly, I'm nowhere near being able to do that right now with this balance, but ideally, that's what we would use it for.
So no, I'm sorry, may I follow up? So no property transfers are digital? Wow.
They're in those books that you see in my office. That's where they are currently.
A lot of books in your office.
There's a lot of books.
A lot of books. Big books.
Big books.
Biggest. Okay. All right. So that makes sense. And the other 50% of this person, this position, is it in GIS? Where is it?
It's in auditors and eligible.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Of course. I did fail to mention one note. I had increased part-time from 10,000 to 15,000. I don't think it's necessary. We can go ahead and bring that back down to 10.
Other comments, questions? Councilor McKim.
Could the entire GIS position fit in ineligible deductions?
Okay, well, I currently have requested in that fund for the 2025 budget, $240,798 worth of expenditures. The cash balance of that fund, as of today, you know, noting we're not through the year yet, is $321,371. So this fund receives revenue. It receives the property tax from ineligible deductions and the penalties associated. So because we've been working on finding those with a company, TMA, we're going to receive less and less revenue from that. So, I mean, you know, the first few years we had that contract, a lot more revenue was coming in. We were finding a lot more, but it's going to be more sporadic at this point. And this was another source of revenue that I could potentially use to help digitize those plat books without dipping into our general fund. So my preference is, although I could, I'd prefer not, but that is to your discretion, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hawk.
We might go ahead and put it in there, and if it runs short, we can always move it back over into general later. But I think anything we can do to put less pressure on general right now, because we still haven't worked any raise in there at all.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever. And we also have not discussed the memo that was sent to us today by council attorney.
Are you talking about the FLSA items and the COLA issues potential? Or is there another memo that went out today?
I sent a memo today, I think, about the auditor's salary,
Okay.
and the new new legislation that applies to the supplemental, but that's the only one I sent today.
Yeah, I've not had time to look at that. But I'm sure we can talk about that eventually.
Okay. Council, I move that we set line 10045 GIS representative to 0 and set line 17801 part-time to $10,000.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion upon the amendment? Okay. All right, let's do a voice vote.
On the amendments, but
amendment.
I need to have a moment to refigure the FICA and PERF because of those changes.
Do you want us to pause after the vote, or do you want us to continue talking and then you do that?
You can go ahead and do a voice vote to approve the amendments so I can move forward, and then give me a moment after
Okay,
that.
awesome. All right, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, that is carried. We'll pause for just a second while Kim does her thing. Oh, it's good. Oh, good. Counselor Iverson, just let me know the audio seems better out there for the attendees online. So thanks for your patience.
I would like to move that we have cookies provided at every meeting going forward. It's been a lovely addition.
Yeah, thanks to our staff for looking out for a lot of random things in this time. Kim's husband is a hero.
He is good.
It's very,
He needs a special staff title, don't you think?
he's a good man.
That first husband, or?
I don't know.
I didn't ask that. Yeah. I have a question real quick for Ms. Turner King and maybe the auditor. On the memo that Counselor Hawk referenced that we received, will we do that in this budget or discuss that in this budget, or what, you got a recommendation there?
I imagine that you would speak
Not working. You may have to borrow from a friend. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
So I imagine the discussion of that occurring when elected officials' salaries are discussed, because that's the time you usually talk about the supplementals.
Thank you. Thanks for taking me back through it. Counselor Iverson.
Just a point of clarity. If you refresh your browser, if you're watching online, the packet is now available on the calendar entry. So it was an older version, and now the correct version is on our calendar entry at co.monroe.in.us.
Thank you. And thanks to TSD for all their quick work in the last 400 meetings.
Okay, council, I've removed the GIS position, reduced the part-time down to 10,000, fix the FICA and the perf, and the new bottom line for personnel is $1,201,535.
Wait, you just reduced it to 1,000.
What?
Just double check here.
Oh, yeah. The math is right. This is just, yeah, sorry. The formula is over here in Lao, it's not over here, so that's why we have to go back and forth.
I figure
Sorry.
1,000 might cause a problem.
Yeah, no, it's 10. I got it over here on the side. So the new bottom line for personnel is $1,201,535. And then the entire budget is now $1,332,535, right? Okay.
Thank you for reading that into our record. All right. Other comments or discussion on this budget? Any questions? We good, friends? Yes, Counselor Wills.
Okay. On the auditor's budget in general, like,
Yeah, I think we're not done with this area, so we could go to any general discussion.
Yes.
okay. I do have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned the contract that has been in place for several years now that's collecting money that's owed to the county, and the fact that it might have some diminishing returns because they captured a lot, and that makes sense. Where is that contract funded, and how much does it cost versus how much is it now bringing in? I'm kind of looking for the return on investment on that.
Just one. Okay, so the contractual line in the general fund is for the Hartman and Williams contract for our gap support. So the contract you're referring to is in the auditor's ineligible fund, which we haven't gotten to.
I will ask about it again then, if that's okay. All right.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Iverson.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll be quick. My question is down on your postage line, 30800. This has come up a couple times during budget hearings. My question is, does your office use one of these postage machines where you load money on and it stays on the machine until you use it, or are you going to the post office or stamps.com or something?
We do a little bit of both because we do send out mailings that, require us to physically go in. It's just a little bit easier, especially for return receipts and so forth. So we do both. For sending out, just typical claims, it goes through the postage machine, so we load it. And we typically, I think we need to load it here again soon, so.
Okay, so do you know the balance on that machine right now?
Sorry, I didn't pull that before coming, but I could get it to you.
I mean, it looks like you asked for 4,000 last year and you expended 4,000. So I would imagine that it's a pretty low balance.
More than likely. I think we'll be okay with 6. I'd rather come back to you for an additional than request more than is necessary.
Sure.
All right. Counselor Hawk.
I was just going to comment that originally, it might have changed, was that contract of having to do with the ineligible, I forget what the title is, but they were, it was just, they would keep a part of what they collected. It didn't really cost, they
is
kept
that right?
a portion of it.
That is correct.
It may not be the same way now, but that's the way it was.
Works the same way.
Okay.
Any other comments or discussions? Okay. I think we can, with the numbers as read by Michelle earlier, thank you very much for doing that in real time, not easy stuff. Let's go to a roll call vote on this budget.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, let's move to the next item, plat book.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1181-0000, plat book with a category request of personnel $0, supplies $500, services $0, capital $0, for a total budget of $500.
Second.
Okay. Auditor?
Thank you. Okay, as I mentioned before, the revenue in this fund comes from property transfers. The auditor's office receives $10 per legal description. I also mentioned I would like to try to build this fund up slightly to assist with the cost to digitize our transfer books, which I'd really like to do in the near future. I think it's really important. I also mentioned the current cash balance is $48,335.55, so we have some work to do. Just to give you an idea, year-to-date revenue, $34,420, so it builds very slowly. There's not much going on in this fund right now. We have a small line for office supplies, and that is all.
Yes, Counselor Hawk.
Right, I would not like the auditor to have to be like where she could save a penny here and a penny there to do a project that needs to be done. We need to just add that project in if it's important to have it done and just face it and move forward. I mean, I appreciate what she's trying to do, but that's, we need to find out about what it would cost and then let us decide where we want to get the money.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilor Hawk. I'm actually attending soon the AIC conference, the Association of Indiana Counties, the annual conference soon, and also there's an upcoming auditors conference. So I intend to speak with some vendors and get an idea of the cost for this project.
Okay. Other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, we will go to a roll call on this budget.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
All right, next we're going to go to, this is the one I struggle to say, auditors ineligible.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1216-0000, auditors ineligible deduction, with a category request of personnel $77,548, supplies $21,000, services $142,250, capital $0, for a total budget of $240,798.
Second.
Okay, counselors. I already spoke briefly about this fund. The revenue is from property tax and associated penalties from erroneous homestead deductions. This fund can be used for essentially any expenses of the Office of the Auditor. Current year-to-date revenue, $32,474. So this is another one that is declining in revenue, as I noted, as far as, revenue coming in. It does have a healthy cash balance of $321,371. So noting all that, this is, another source, potential source of funding that project that we've discussed of digitizing the records. So with that, there's not a lot going on. I know that you intend to put the entire GIS position in here, so we'll have an adjustment to do there. Other than that, happy to entertain questions.
All right. Questions? Yeah, Counselor Wiltz?
I was like, do I? This contractual it says TMA audits. Is that the gap? Is that what you're referring to? The people? What audit is this?
So the audit contract was in the general fund.
Okay.
This is the TMA audits. They're the Tax Management Associates, I think is their name, and they do the homestead deduction auditing. So they go in, help research that, and then we pay nothing out of pocket unless they find something, and they get a % of those fees, which
That's, okay, so this is that one. But you have 125,000 budgeted in that,
I do.
and you lowered that by, it looks like $100,000.
We lowered it by a substantial amount because, as you can see, expended in 2023 was around 83,000. 2024, even less. We could lower that further. It's fluctuated quite a bit year to year, so it's just hard to gauge where we're gonna be. I would be comfortable going to maybe 80. I mean, clearly we're not spending it unless we need to.
Yes, Councilor Kim.
I mean, lowering that doesn't really get us anything.
Exactly.
No,
So,
yeah.
but I do want to make a motion to increase line 10045 GIS representative to $60,072, along with all the appropriate self-insurance, FICA, and PERF.
Second.
Got a motion on the table to amend this. Any discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing no discussion on the amendment, we'll go to a voice vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, the motion is carried. Michelle, you need some time to adjust that? All right.
This is where Jennifer can play the Jeopardy clocks.
I could. We need a commercial break.
Yeah, we should sell advertising. That's right. They're paying that advertising on buses right now. Yeah, we should sell
That's right.
advertising to the county council.
That's right. At about like 4% for every employee.
It's a good time to do a commercial.
I think we should have one of those banners that just keeps moving along, you know,
Like a little ticker.
the little ticker line. Yes. People
On a
pay
night.
attention.
In European soccer games, they have them on the sidelines so that as the players are playing, there's like a dog running in front of.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
On a night like this, a Hinkle's hamburger goes a long way in helping.
That's right,
We can do
that's
all
right.
sorts. We could read them,
That's right.
distribute them, pass them on. Oh, good. We're still recording.
Okay, council, since I kind of had an idea what you were doing, was working on some numbers. So, we increased the GIS to 60,072, increased the FICA to 7,044, PERF to 8,532 for a grand total for the personnel for 114,148, with then a grand total for the budget to 277,398.
All right, that has been read into the record, and we will accept that. Any other questions or discussion items on this budget? We good? All right, here in a moment, we'll go to a roll call. I just want to remind the public, this is not us accepting the budget final, it's us accepting it into our record, and we'll move forward. All right, let's do a roll call vote.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right. We'll move on. Thank you very much to the auditor.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to number 8, Youth Services Bureau. Want to come on up?
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1114-0166 Lit Special Purpose YSB with a category request of personnel $2,258,754. Supplies, $72,300. Services, $136,800. Capital, $10,000, for a total budget of $2,487,854.
Second, but what was the capital number again?
10,000.
Be 20.
Okay, yeah, in the detail, it's 20,000.
20.
All right.
What was the bottom line that you had? 2 million?
200 or 2,487,854. But
So the bottom line is correct.
That's okay.
The bottom line is
It's just the
correct.
capital is
it's
20,000.
20,000.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome all. Thanks for coming in, and tell us what you would like to highlight here in this budget.
Well, first, I'm Vicki Tavenot, the Executive Director. I think you all know Judge Holly Harvey, the juvenile judge, and this is Vanessa Smith, the Deputy Director. And I would first, before we discuss the budget, let you know that every 4 years we're licensed by the Indiana Department of Child Services. We passed our audit 2 weeks ago with flying colors. So you can keep us open for the next 4 years.
Awesome.
Secondly, we are audited every 3 years by the federal government because we do receive federal funds. That was an exhausting 10-hour audit all day for Vanessa and me in a room with the auditor, and we passed again with flying colors. So you've got us for a while if you want to fund us. But
Awesome.
our proposal, our budget proposal increased by about $84,000, which is about 3.5% increase, and that is attributed almost entirely to two things. One is a new position that was approved for the development and training manager this year, and the 2% increase, which was recommended by the USDA for food. We do have to feed the children, and as you all know, groceries are going up. So those are the significant changes, and we also transferred $7,500 out of the YSB budget into the commissioner's budget because they are going to take over taking care of maintenance, all fleet maintenance and repair. And that's great for us. We're happy that we just call them to come fix the cars and buses, so no problem there. Any questions about anything else? That's mostly we're staying in what we normally spend. We are very fiscally conservative over there, and we'll keep trying to remain that way.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on all that. That's tremendous. And yes, we do want to fund you. Counselor McKim.
Great. Thank you. I just had a question on the data specialist position. The notes in our spreadsheet say staff in position TBD. Is that vacant, or do you?
Yeah, we just promote the development and training person. We promoted from within, from the data specialist. We have a conditional offer out right now. And as you know, if you work for us, you have to do an extensive background fingerprinting, background checks, all the things. And those take about 2 to 3 weeks. So we can't be a full offer until that's completed, and we're in the process.
Okay, good. But you have pretty good confidence that you'll have this position
yes.
filled. Great.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes, I don't know whether you noticed or not, but in the bond that the county is doing, looks like we're going to finally get some generators there.
Yay.
And that should have already happened. I hope that you don't have to wait too long to get those, because every day that goes by, and if something would happen that you would lose electricity again, you just simply can't have that. You have people that you have to take care of every day, and you have to plan every day as though that place is full. And so you don't ever leave a facility such as that without the means to continue to operate. So.
Well, we are very grateful and looking forward to it. Being in the dark with smelly teenagers who can't shower and freezers that we can't open to get food has been a disaster when it's more than a day or two. So thank you very much for that.
Right. It's unacceptable, totally unacceptable. And it's been a long time now since, it happened months ago. And you were without electricity for what, 3 days? And we had to have somebody running.
Longer than that.
Was it 3 days?
5 days.
Almost 5 full days.
Yeah.
And you had to have somebody like running some kind of line from one building to the other.
Yes.
We should have immediately been on all over that to get the money for it. We've got the money. Don't ever be afraid to come to ask for something like that.
Okay.
Because that really should be, if it has to do with money, come ask us.
Okay, thank you. I would want to say one more thing before you consider our budget. We do bring in, last year we brought in $831,000 to the county general fund through per diems that we collected, and this year we expect to exceed that. We've already collected a 600 and plus thousand and project that it'll be about almost 900,000 this year. So that is money that offsets our budget that goes into county general that you use for other things.
Thank you very
Give you
much.
a reason to get things
Councilor
taken
Hawk?
care of.
Right. I also wanted to mention that on some of the documents I saw just today, it said the Brinkley House. And for those of us who remember Morris Binkley.
I'm sorry if there was a
It's the
misspelling by
Binkley
someone, and I remember Morris well, so it is the Binkley House.
Right. I mean, he would be here with the chocolates.
Yes, he would.
He always had homemade dark chocolate for everybody.
Councilor Wiltz.
If I can remember the question that I had, that would be fantastic. Oh, it was about the food. You mentioned the increase for the food, which it looks like the year before you had no increase in your food budget, which is surprising to me. So do you wait until there's a specific directive from USDA to you, or?
No, we just looked it up this year because inflation has been worse than it had been in the past, and we've had way more kids, so they eat more. And I just wanted to be sure that we've had something to reference why we were asking for an increase, and that seemed like the logical place to look.
I would think so. And it looks like you're right on target to spend every little bit that you budgeted last year, so that makes a lot of sense. Food's important too. I would say right behind or next to in front of the generator. Like, obviously you need funds for food. So a 2% when there hasn't been one in a while does not seem like very much to me, and I would not be afraid to look at that maybe more frequently as you come back.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Councilor Hawk.
Well, and for those of us who remember having young folks around, it's been a while since that happened at my house, but they're always hungry.
Yes.
And there's always need for a snack. You know,
We
they
are
want-
required to feed them 3 full meals and 2 snacks a day.
Right.
And we do. And we also have other things, fruit and things for them whenever they're hungry.
And healthy food is so important. I just think that we have, for too long, relied on processed food that's just not good for anyone.
All of our menus have to be approved by the state, and the portions and the ingredients down to the minutest details. So you're welcome to look at our menus anytime. They were approved, by the way, for next year.
All right. Other questions, comments? All right. Sounds like there are none. So we'll go to a roll call on this budget.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. I would like to make one more comment if you don't mind. I'm 70 now, so I'm not positive that I'll be at another budget hearing. Not making any announcements yet, but I want to leave expressing on the record my fear that the people that come after some of you and take your place will forget to change the lit special purpose tax rate back. And YSB is funded, with the exception of our federal grant and a tiny little state grant, with lit special purpose only. And I'm fearful that as the surplus is spent down, that this will get forgotten. So I needed to say that and let you know that in case I don't see you next year, that's really an important thing that I hope stays in the headlines. Okay?
Thank you very much. And
Sure.
I think I can express on behalf of several counselors at least, that is in the back of our heads and in our processes, because we recognize that tremendous work that is happening there, and we don't want to eat into that success. Generational, tons of success over success.
If I may make one
Please,
more
Judge.
comment. As you can tell from the very detailed nature of the budget and the very detailed nature of Vicki's presentation, there's a lot of minutia that goes into maintaining this budget. What I want to highlight for you as well is the tremendous work that they're doing over there. In the midst of having to count calories and menus and details on audits, what they're doing for the young people in our community is tremendous. We have a truancy program over there that's been expanded. They've been able to continue with that and add. There are many, many young people who go through their program who have wonderful relationships with the counselors that they meet there, so much so that those counselors also will stay with those youth after they leave the shelter. If you've not been over there, it's a great facility. And I am fortunate to be able to be just kind of sit here and watch the work get done. But really, they're doing a fantastic job, and I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Thank you, Judge. We appreciate that very much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right. We'll move on to item 9, which is court services.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1000-0225 General Fund Courts with a category request of personnel, $3,725,261, supplies, $29,051, services, $885,208, capital 0, for a total budget of $4,639,520.
Second.
Welcome back, Judge.
Judge Dekoff is on her way. I expect her to walk in at any moment, so.
All right.
In her chair, right here and open.
Okay, this budget I have kept exactly the same with one exception, which is in the line for depositions. If you recall, this year during the summer, I came before you and you approved this new line for me to have, but I was given $0, so I've been transferring money into that line, and I was told to budget for that for 2025. I have spent, as you can see here, $43,000 as of June 30th, and I am well over that as of right now. So I only went $75,000. This is the first time I've had it, so I don't know, but I went less than half, since I spent more than half of that. That's the only change I've made in this whole budget.
All right, council questions. Councilor McKim.
Thank you. This is not so much a question, it's more kind of a reminder to some of my colleagues here that the line juvenile detention, often we look at what they've already spent to date and we try to get departments to reduce that amount. We do not do that with this particular line, because we know that we have to pay it regardless if the circumstances are, justify that cost. And so, yeah, I mean, we're always happy to see that we're not sending a lot of juveniles to detention, and that reflects very well on Monroe County's judicial philosophy, and we really appreciate that. But that's not a line we attempt to reduce, even though they might not have spent all that much this year.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Councilor Hawk.
Right, and just as a reminder to the public, we cannot move the detention expenses over to the special purpose fund by legislation. You're not allowed to do that. So, just heads up, the only way we could do it is if we had our own detention facility, but Binkley House is not a detention facility.
Right.
And I'm not advocating for a detention facility.
Yeah, I wanted to make that clear too. All right. And welcome, Judge Dekoff.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from counselors?
Very clean budget.
Councilor Wiltz.
It is a very clean budget, and I appreciate that. In the past, the guardian ad litem and pauper attorneys lines had been insufficient. I think we increased that quite a bit, and it looks as though that's about right. Is that how you're feeling?
Well, not as of this morning.
Oh, no.
I ran my line. I can tell you, the pauper attorney, I started the year with $125,000. As of this morning, I have spent $128,622. And we're only this far into this year, so I will be doing a lot of transferring and figuring out how I'm going to do that. My guardian ad litem, I started with 125,000. As of this morning, I've spent 107,604. So I only have 17,300 left in that line. So, and I get the bulk of them usually in December. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Alrighty then, we'll see you soon.
But it seemed much better in June.
Right, it did. I'm like, wow. Okay, all right. Well, it's important to have that in there. So we will take another look at that. That's all I have.
Okay. Counselor McKim.
Mental health evaluations, I know that's been a challenge. How is that going this year?
I started with 100,000. As of this morning, I had spent 57,671, and I have right now 8 outstanding invoices that I'm expecting that we've already done. They just haven't sent the invoices, and then whatever else eval requests that come in between now and the end of the year. So I expect that to be pretty much gone by the end of the year.
Yeah, it looks like it's sort of on track though to what you would.
Yeah, I think it's
would
going to be a
expect
pretty good
from-
yes.
to spend it all. Okay.
What's going to help is that there was a change in the law on July 1st by the Indiana Legislative Branch. In certain cases, certain cause numbers, we can do with one evaluation as opposed to 2. So it's going to help with some of them. It doesn't apply to all of the causes, all of the levels, but it does apply to some of them. So that was because of the rising number of evaluations that are being done across the state. They addressed that, and that was.
Thank you.
All right. Any final questions? Okay. Well, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right. We'll move next to public safety lit.
Or is it special purpose?
Yeah, it's okay. Sorry. Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1114-0225 Lit Special Purpose Courts with a category request of personnel, $179,810, supplies, $2,625, services, $331,282, capital 0 for a total budget of $513,717.
Second.
Okay, in this budget, the only change that I made is in the CASA because they had a decrease in their federal funding of the $75,000, so I would need to pick that up. And if you have questions on that, I have Kristen Bechet in the back of the room, the director of CASA, to answer any of your questions regarding that.
I myself would like to hear more about that, please, and thank you for coming. Welcome. Thank you for being with us, and
Of course.
tell us more about this, please.
We get a federal grant and have been for a good 25, 30 years, and it's the VOCA grant, Victims of Crime Assistance. And for the last 7 to 10 years, we have had a steady increase in funding. Last year, though, it was announced that they were going to cut funding across the board 40%. That 40% is equivalent to $75,000 for us. This is one of the only grants that we can really apply for that actually pays for salaries. And they also pay for a service that we give, our multi-case CASAs, which are volunteers who take 6 or more cases at a time, compared to 1 or 2, or most of our volunteers do. So it's a very important grant for us. If we were not to replace the money that is lost, we will probably have to reduce staff.
Thank you very much. Pretty stark. Questions from council. Councilor Wiltz.
So the whole CASA program is incredible and sorely needed, and it always engenders mixed feelings for me because it seems like to me it shouldn't be a voluntary type of thing. I think it should be wholly funded by government, and it should be a requirement. So when I ask this, please know it's out of total respect, but could you talk a little bit about the employees, what they do versus what volunteers might do, just to kind of clarify that structure for me?
Yes, we have my position as director. We have a resource development manager who recruits volunteers and does fundraising. We also have an office manager. But the other employees are what we call case coordinators, and they will train and supervise each of the volunteers. This role, again, we're using community volunteers who don't have backgrounds in juvenile law or social work, and that is the beauty of the program, that they don't. But they need guidance, and they need resources, and they need someone to protect them in court, out of court, to understand what the situations are in the cases.
Okay.
Did you want
Thank
to
you.
add anything to that?
Well, if I may, I mean, by statute, any child who's a child in need of services has to have a CASA or guardian ad litem. In Monroe County, we have a structure where the volunteer advocate is the one maybe assigned to a case, and the caseworker, the case managers are there as a guide. If we didn't have that structure, we would have to appoint a guardian ad litem anyway, and could be a paid, by the county guardian ad litem. We do have guardian ad litems in other cases, such as juvenile paternity cases, domestic relations cases where we have a custody matter, or even in guardianships where we appoint a GAL, and those positions are paid by the county for more, I would say professional, but we do have social service type background folks and sometimes attorneys. So the CASA program really does enable us to use and kind of be more efficient that way, but at the same token, it does require, because of our numbers, some expertise in training, expertise in supervising, and so it's money well spent. I have to say that only in the last, year to 2 years, they've had these multi-case CASAs who are paid probably a minimal stipend. Do you understand the number of hours these folks put into these cases? And so it gives them a little bit of incentive because they're more experienced and can kind of handle more than one case at a time, because it really becomes, at least, if not a full-time job, a part-time job, keeping track of everybody. So I guess
If I might add, I did the math, and our CASA volunteers put in over 11,000 hours of volunteer work a year. If the county were to pay a guardian ad litem for that, what we're asking for the county, we're saving over $600,000 a year for that, so for the service that we provide.
Yeah.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes, you folks have just said what my comment was going to be a while ago to Council Member Wiltz, because we either get the volunteers to do it or we pay someone to do it because we must do it. It isn't, it's a part of what is the responsibility. So we're just fortunate in this community that we have so many people who really do want to help out. But if ever the time would come that there's not enough CASA workers to do it, the court will find somebody and we will pay them.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just say one more thing about that. From my seat not only presiding over the juvenile court, but also on the State Advisory Commission for GAL CASA. So I'm familiar with other programs in the state. Monroe County is a flagship program, so this is dollars well spent, for one thing. I want to shout to Kristen. She's getting ready to retire after many years at the helm of this program. With her expertise and devotion and passion to the program, she has built this program into a tremendous value for our juvenile court. And she pinches pennies, and she does a lot with what she's got. Everybody over there is very dedicated as well. So,
Congratulations on almost retirement.
Oh, I can't wait. Thank you.
A lot of work that's got you to that moment. Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councilor Hawk.
Well, I think that for the volunteers, they are really getting a major reward as well, because people who volunteer for this really do it because they love to be of service. And it also broadens the awareness throughout the community when those volunteers, they can't talk maybe about they're not going to share personal things, but they can share what a joy it is and really how heartbreaking it can be as well to work with these young people and with the families and so forth. So it's a win-win, but it's all because you've worked so hard at it, and we appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Thank you.
You've really
It has
done
been.
this.
I've been with the program for 28 years.
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Right. Back when it was Roberta, what's her name? Roberta Weiss song. Am I pronouncing that right? With the youth shelter and so forth. I think that was right when our youth shelter was there near where the library is now. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think that was before
That
me.
was before you folks
That was before
were
me,
born,
yeah.
but that's
All right. Let's, seeing no other council comments, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes?
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Okay. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. We'll move on to now Public Safety Lit.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1170-0225 Public Safety Lit Courts with a category request of Personnel 0, Supplies 0, Services $283,790, Capital 0 for a total budget of $283,790.
Second.
Okay, this budget, again, stayed the same. It is just to pay for the ASI security guards in the Justice Building and the Curry Building.
Questions, comments from counselors?
There was a question on that, but did you recently have a change in staff, or there's like a question going on in my brain that I was going to
I'm
ask
thinking the
about
bailiff. The bailiff is in Mining County General. This is the ASI security guards. That is
Okay.
under David Gardner.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote on this budget.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes?
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, next up, alternative dispute resolution.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2200-0000 Alternative Dispute Resolution with a category request of Personnel 0, Supplies $500, Services $13,200, Capital $1,000, for a total budget of $14,700.
Second.
Okay, and again, I kept this budget exactly the same, no change at all.
Okay. Questions from council? Counselor Wiltz.
So, forgive me, I don't know what this funds.
This is for basically pays for mediation for those people in, say, divorce cases that cannot afford the mediator. If they qualify for the low income, they come over, and that's what we take out of the contractual. Then we have a set fee that a local attorney will come and do it, and we pay them.
Contractual, I was like, but there's no person, there's no
Yes.
people, got
It's under
it. And to
contractual.
me, that would be the biggest expense. That makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions? Because in other situations, the people going through that process pay for the mediator, right?
If they can afford it, the judge deems they can, they might have to split it between the husband and wife that are getting the divorce 50-50. If they can't do it at all and they meet the requirements, then it's kind of like a sliding scale.
That sounds familiar.
And that's what our family court coordinator is in charge of, the scale, and she turns in the invoices if she has to get a mediator.
Gotcha. Other questions? We good? Let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor McKim? Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
Next up is jury pay.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2511-0000 jury pay user fees with a category request of personnel 0, supplies 0, services $36,500, capital 0 for a total budget of $36,500.
Second.
Okay, and once again, I kept this budget the same. It pays for jury trials.
Questions, comments? Counselor Hawk.
Need better glasses. So what's the balance in there now? What?
I had to check this morning. The cash balance is $78,087.01 is what's in the fund. Of my $35,000, we turned a claim in today for $2,428.88 because I have actually two jury funds, one in county general and one here. But I have 3 big trials I've been told, murder and rape, and that's going to be coming out of this between now and the end of the year.
Right, that's
my
why I was
goodness.
asking the question, because watching what's going on in the news, I think you may be busy with jury trials.
And this year they increased the jury pay. They basically doubled it. Instead of $40 a day, it's now $80 a day for the first 5 days, and then it goes to $90 a day for those seated. So it's doubling all of my jury claims.
And it's still not enough, because if you're called to serve on the jury, it doesn't matter what your home life is or what, if you have to, if you're missing work or whatever, it might really be costing your family budget a whole lot more than what you're going to be making on this. And you can't say, well, I can't afford to do it, because you have to.
You have to.
Got to do it. It's the Constitution. I want to just compliment that team, and it's probably one of the most public-facing teams with just your average folks walking around the street. And there's been a couple times I've had constituents who are they get nervous about it, they inquire about it, and your folks are just on the spot in relieving that. And when I've been on the pool myself, that's one of the most easiest processes for something that is not necessarily the most normal processes. So I really want to compliment that.
Thanks. I take pride in that one because I did that job for 19 years. So,
Wow.
Well, you did well. It's a good standard. Yes.
Yes, I had quite an experience many years ago when someone came up to me on the street and said, you're coming right now. Oh, I can't. I've got this money I have. I'm getting ready to deposit. It's not my money. It belonged to the company. And, it was no, and you're coming right now. And you had to sit down there and you can't make a phone call. And you were just, I was beside myself. I thought, people are going to think I have made off with this money from the closing that I didn't get to take to
they
the
had to
bank.
come in and see me, and I got the blunt of it. So
It was terrifying to me.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
All right, we'll go to the next budget.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 8895-0000, Title 4D Incentive, with a category request of personnel, $47,757, supplies, 0, services, 0, capital, $9,500, for a total budget of $57,257.
Second.
Okay, and again, this one has stayed the same, just a change in Commissioner Raper since his salary is a percentage of the judge's salary. But this pays for a part of Commissioner Raper in the Title 4D program.
All right. Questions, comments from counselors? All right, we're good. Let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
All right, we'll go on to item number 10.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1000-0226, General Fund Probation, with a category request of personnel, $3,071,779, supplies, 0, services, $4,000, capital, 0, for a total budget of $3,075,779.
Second.
All right, welcome Linda and Anthony. And of course, Judge Dekoff is back with us. Welcome. You can start. Thanks for waiting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. I just wanted to first start by introducing our team, starting with myself, Chief Probation Officer, and you already know Presiding Judge Dekoff, and then Anthony Williams. He's our new Deputy Chief Probation Officer. And we also have on teams, part of our team, Becca Strite, who's the other Deputy Chief Probation Officer and our Community Corrections Executive Director, and Melissa Wallace, who's our office administrator. It really does take a village to do all of these budgets, and I appreciate our team. I also want to give a shout out to Troy Hatfield, our former Deputy Chief Probation Officer, and thank you to the County Council. You gave us money to be able to retain his services after he went to a different job, and he has been training Anthony, and he's fast becoming the new numbers guy, the new Troy, because he knows how to do the numbers. So wanted to give Troy a shout out. Just a real quick summary of the probation budgets. We have 28 budgets, and that's up by 10 budgets. We had 18 budgets when I came before you last year, but we've received more grants this year. Most of our expenses are personnel related. About 88% of our expenses are for personnel. Our budgets are divided between tax, about 60%, user fees, about 14%, and grants, about 26%. Summary of what we're going to be talking about tonight with the budgets, starting with the probation officer minimum salary schedule. The Indiana salary schedule went up by 3% for 2025. All of the submitted budgets, though, with personnel, put step raises only, no COLA, and that includes for the probation officers. And that was because I talked to my council liaisons that it would just be easier just to do no COLA for anybody and just wait till after the COLA's decision was made. We also increased self-insurance, as we were supposed to $13,000. And generally, our budgets are flatlined with a few exceptions that I'll talk about when I get to each of those budgets. I wanted to just briefly talk about staff turnover. You already know we've been through a lot of turnover in the past few years. Since COVID, we've only had 3 weeks total where we had a full staff. But I do want to say that the probation officer turnover seems to be going down. The past couple years, it's been 20%. In the past year, it's been about 7%. And I would like to give some credit to the county council here because you did give COLAs to probation officers that were above the minimums that were given to the state probation officers. You gave us the county raise, and that, I really believe that made a difference. And also, we got our longevity restored right before longevity got ended. But I do think that made a big difference and has really reduced the turnover for probation officers. For community corrections field officers, that continues to be an issue. We still have between 40 to 50% turnover with that staff. But at this moment, I'm afraid to say it, Judge Dekoff will hit me here, but I have no vacancy.
Don't say it. You just said it.
She's afraid I'm going to jinx this. Each of the budgets I'll talk about, I've increased a little bit of advertising costs because it costs a lot more to advertise than it used to on Indeed, but I only put in increases for that in user fee budgets only and not in any of the tax-based funds. I also increased travel training because travel has gone up, hotels, meals, things like that have gone up, and I increased that in user fee budgets, again, not county, the public safety lit or the county general budget. I will talk briefly about security cost increase. For many years, we have contracted as a county with Alliance Security that hires state troopers to do security at community corrections in the morning between 7 and 9 a.m. during our high volume day reporting hours. They ended our contract because the state troopers got a very nice raise and they didn't want to work a second job, and who can blame them? They don't have to. So we had to change gears, and we did find a security company who was willing to work with us, and that's Crimson Security. However, they asked for more money than what we were paying for the state troopers. So it was about a 72% increase per hour. So it went from $35 an hour to $60 an hour. And so that increase I've split between two budgets, and that would be the public safety lit and the special purpose lit. So those are some of the major increases. And the last one I want to talk about is the increase in part-time probation officer assistant line for our part-time staff. Years ago, the Department of Correction, our Community Corrections grant, is where we funded our part-time probation officer assistants. Over the years, we have had to cut it down to nothing as far as how much the grant will pay for part-timers, and that is because the state of Indiana has not increased funding for community corrections grants for at least the last 6 years. The budgets have been flatlined, and that's the state budget issue because the priority, and DOC was tell you the priority was prison, that building a new prison was their priority, and so they did not ask for, nor did they receive any increases in community corrections grants. So if you take, that's our largest grant. You take that grant and you flatline it for 6 years, you think, well, where's the COLA coming from, the step increases, the increases in FICA and PERF and insurance? It's coming from project income, and that's user fee funds. Well, user fee funds are a soft source of money, and it's just not a good way to fund staff. So I did increase some lines, which we'll talk about specifically when we get there, for probation officer assistants. And then the last thing, we did ask for a new position.
We asked for a new position, and we're withdrawing that request at this time. So it's the data specialist for JRAC, and we're withdrawing it from our budget request tonight. We are waiting, WIS is looking at it. We're going to wait to see what their recommendation is, and then we're going to try to find funding elsewhere first. And if we can find funding elsewhere first, then we'll pay for that position out of that. And if not, you may see us again, but it is the JRAC director. The reason that it was in the budget is because the General Assembly put requirements, mandates, for a JRAC. We have a JRAC committee, and it's very good, but the new mandates require a lot more record keeping and data keeping. So, but we are going to look at it a different way first. So tonight, we're withdrawing it from the budget. And we wanted to tell you that first before we got started on the rest of the budget. So,
Thank you very much, and thanks for that update. Questions
Great.
from
Yes.
counselors, I think. Yeah, Counselor McKim.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, first of all, just very, very well-run department. We really always appreciate the information and the professional manner that you give it to us. I definitely support this JRAC position, and I do hope that you are able to find funding. And I'm certainly eager to do anything I can to help. But I also appreciate you offering to remove it from the general fund request at this time. So, Council, I move we set line 11126, data specialist, to 0.
Second.
All right, we've got an amendment motion here on this budget. Any further discussion on the amendment? Likewise appreciated, and I'm interested and wanted to be supportive. All right, seeing none, let's do a voice vote on this amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. All right, back to the underlying budget. Questions or comments?
So we're looking just at general.
General, and Michelle's got to do her update too, right? So I'll give her a second for that.
Can I ask a question while she's doing that?
Absolutely, I think so.
All right. You mentioned you were talking about turnover of employees, and I'm not sure if I heard correctly. You said 40 to 50% turnover still with field officers?
With the community corrections field officers, yes.
And why do you think that is? I mean, is that just salary, or is there more to it?
There's probably more to it. I would say that the kind of person who wants to work a job, I mean, let's face it, they're on call 24/7. They work evenings, they work weekends, they're out in the field, they're out in people's homes, and it's not the most glamorous job. Some people who do those sorts of jobs might want to be armed. Our officers are not armed. There are some counties where their officers, they're law enforcement officers or they're special deputies, but they're armed. Ours are not. So it has a little bit different of kind of a different flavor. Some people who apply for those jobs are people who want to be law enforcement, and we've had people who've left our department and become sheriff's deputies or BPD.
Or probation officers or something else. I mean,
Yeah.
So, you know, you get people, I think, who see it as a stepping stone to get some experience too.
Okay.
So I think that's also part of it.
And we are trying to make it so that there's not so much interruption of their sleep at night with policies. And this, I'll have to say, with the judges and their policy, trying to decide what kind of violations that happen in the middle of the night do we have to immediately get a warrant? Do we need to, or can we wait till tomorrow? Or can we wait till the next business day? And but the legislature has...
There are some things that the legislator says has to happen immediately or almost immediately. So we've looked at our policies and we looked at the law, and so we try to work with that as well. It's not, as Linda said, it's not the most glamorous of jobs.
Yeah.
Do they share call coverage so that they do have, I mean, you said they're on call 24/7. Do you mean collectively or individuals?
Individually, but they can trade off their phones with each other, but they all tend to be very possessive of their caseloads and not want to give up their cases to another officer, but they can. I mean, if they want to take a day off or take a vacation, absolutely they can. It's just they tend to not want to do that. But someone has to be it is by law, we have to respond 24/7.
Sure.
And there is a new law that went into effect. If people are on electronic monitoring, that there is, especially if they've committed an offense against a person.
But they're not going out there.
Right.
They're not going out there. The law
Right.
says that the victim has to be notified.
Yeah.
So when it alerts, then the victim has to be notified that the alert has gone off in certain crimes. We're not sending out these people into homes at 2 a.m. by themselves.
Right. And that's a good clarification to make, for sure.
But the way that the law is written is that when the alert goes off, then they are to, if certain things have happened or they can't get, we can't figure out where the person is, then the victims have to be notified within a certain amount of time. So that's what our policies address. But no, we're not sending out these unarmed part-time people. No.
Yeah, no, I
just wanted to clarify that one because, yes, they are woken up, but it's not like we're sending them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say we were trying to do things policy-wise, better equipment. Some of the equipment tends to get better with the GPS. You probably know this, that GPS was never designed to do this. It was, to pinpoint a person to a tiny little location, it's really not designed for that. And so the satellites are not always perfect, so, but it gets better, and I think as it gets better, they're interrupted less in their sleep. But we have a very good crew. I'll have to give them a shout out too, because we have excellent officers. They're very dedicated to their jobs.
Thank you.
I think Michelle's got the bottom line here.
Yes, I removed the salary for the data specialist to 0. We also removed the full-time insurance amount, which was $13,000. We adjusted the FICA to, so the full-time insurance is now $377,000. The FICA is now $165,646. The PERF is $293,189 for a total personnel of $3,001,141 with a total fund change of $3,005,141.
Councilor Iverson, looks like you have a question.
I have a further question. Is now the appropriate time, Mr. President?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Out of fairness, I've been asking this question a lot. I'm in your services category on line 30800, your postage line. Do you have one of these machines? Do you know what the balance is? You didn't expend anything, but you're asking for more money.
Well, we actually just got this added a couple of years ago. The courts pay our postage, and so this is our contribution towards that. So we don't have a machine. We send it through the courts. And I was asked a few years ago when the clerk stopped mailing the mail and the court started mailing it, if we would contribute. So this is our contribution. So we don't have a machine, so I don't know what the balance is, but I just know that this is our portion and our share of the postage for the courts. Yes. And then the only other item that isn't personnel is our workforce manager, the software for the field officers when they're out in the field. There's AT&T app that tracks them. So we have cookie crumbs wherever they go. We know where they are. We know how fast they're driving. We know how long they stayed at people's houses, and we institute that as a safety measure for our officers. So that's what that's for.
Wow. Thank you.
I do want to kind of follow up your comments earlier about the vacancy and that change. And I want to say that a compliment to the way that you had advocated and informed to us about all those vacancies and issues back when that was a more robust issue. For any probation officer that might catch these comments or watch this later on, that was so thorough with us, not just in these meetings, but with regular communication and regular updates and a good persistence that we needed to hear, that when that situation changed, there were times where I thought, well, they must be okay because she's not said anything. And that kind of advocacy, I think, speaks to the reputation for which you went after that. And that was helpful in our role so that we didn't lose sight of that. And I'm glad to hear the news, and we'll knock on wood, but yeah.
Well, and our probation officers, especially the ones who've been here for a long time, of course, they very much appreciated getting their longevity back, because those who remember when they used to get it before 2003, who are still here, really appreciated that. But they really appreciated also to be treated like they're a county employee. Yeah, and not to be punished for the fact that the state has a minimum salary schedule. So I'm glad you said that, Trent, because people, they watch, and they very much appreciated the county council's support.
Other Counselor Hawk.
Yes, I know it probably come no surprise to you that there's many people at the state level working very hard to get the state to pay for the probation officers. I mean, from many years, there's the thought amongst many council members that if the state is going to set the salary, the state's going to put all the rules in place, that it's up to the courts. The judges are paid by the state, and if the probation officers are there at the will of the judges, that there's the thought that the state should also pick up probation cost. Doesn't mean they wouldn't still be here, but the state would pay for that and all the expenses. So we shouldn't be surprised if that does eventually happen, because there's so much effort going into doing that. And you can imagine that there's just a whole lot of counties that really are not as fortunate as we are. We do have more revenue than many counties, but we've got some of the smaller counties who are, you know, they just cannot make ends meet. So I would not be at all surprised to see a bigger effort put behind that this time.
Great.
Any final comments? All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Next up, lit special purpose.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1114-0273 Lit Special Purpose Probation with a category request of personnel, $968,550, supplies, $4,000, services, $109,220, capital, $2,000, for a total budget of $1,083,770.
Second.
The only increases in this budget would be for the self-insurance, the travel training increase, and the security increase that I just talked about, that's split between this budget and the public safety lit.
Okay, Counselor
That's
Hawk.
Yes, how did you decide how much of the split it should be? You split it 50/50?
That was just what happened a few years ago. We just did it 50/50, and I just continued it. I mean, there's not really much rhyme or reason. It can go in
Right.
both, but
As you might know, we have reduced the rate going into special purpose, and so we need to watch very carefully that we're not spending that down quicker than what had been anticipated. And so I would be really shocked if the services should be equal, because surely you don't have as many for juveniles as you do for the adult probate.
yeah, there actually, we do, there's 2 officers upstairs and 2 downstairs at community corrections.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about ASI, but, you know, you're right. This is the security upstairs.
Right,
with the,
so
the jail.
that's just a thought. I think we need to keep an eye on it, because we don't want that special purpose to really end up being shorter than what we had projected it would work for. And the other question I had, because I've been talking with some of the other council members throughout the state, and so this may not be at all the appropriate time to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and you can say, not me, not my turn, whatever. But she is saying that they have a JCAP program in the jail. And so when I was hearing you talk about JRAC, and I thought, what is this? Or maybe she hit her hand on the wrong key, but what is a JCAP?
Are you talking about the JRACs
Well, that's what
Maybe.
It stands for Jail Chemical Addiction Program.
Oh, maybe that's what it is, huh?
I've never heard of it either.
I've never heard of it. Yeah.
They have a program in the jail and just recently created a navigator position to help those 90 days, 60 days, and 30 days before release to be prepared to transition back. I mean,
never heard of it.
I didn't know whether that would have anything to do with what you folks were doing. I just wanted to ask that question. If you don't know, then
Yeah, never heard of it.
well, you know, sometimes we think we know everything, and guess what? We can learn a lot by talking with these other folks, and it's just a shame that we don't, all of us, go to the AIC meetings.
Well, one thing I would say, Marty, is that our job obviously isn't in the jail. Ours is community supervision. So we do actually have a grant that's not before you tonight, the sequential intercept model, where we're getting people transitioned out of jail straight into treatment. And so Anthony's been coordinating that grant, and Centerstone actually has a staff person who's in our office and meeting with the clients and doing intakes in the probation office. So we're doing our piece, which is community supervision piece and the reentry and all that.
Right, well, I heard you sort of discuss that, and I felt, well, could this be the same thing? I don't know, I just wanted to ask the question. Thank you.
Counselor Iverson.
I'm going to get back into the budget. I'm in the services category. And in lines 32,113 and 32,114 is drug testing and electronic monitoring. Those didn't go up at all. I would presume that those costs did go up. So am I not understanding the situation correctly?
This is the special purpose list, so it's for juvenile. And
Okay.
a couple of years ago, our juvenile judge quit charging
That's right.
any non-mandatory juvenile fees. And I suppose we could just cut it out because we're not using it at this point. But yeah, that's a good question though. But our juvenile judges, they do not charge any non-mandatory fees at all. So that's home detention, drug testing, anything.
I guess I'm not sure how that, so these are expenditure lines.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, so I guess that's true. That's not reimbursement. Yes. I was thinking we were in juvenile puff. We have too many budgets.
Yes, we do.
This is special purpose. This is where we
Special
pay
purpose.
this is where we pay the lab and where we pay the electronic monitoring company. Yes.
Thank you. You read my
Thanks.
mind.
Yeah, no, from the, yeah, exactly.
Still
The
no
juvenile
charge to that.
puff is what I was thinking.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes, many years ago, we covered 4 juvenile probation officers in what we called it the welfare budget, but it was for the DCS budget. When we would say, well, why don't we get the state to pay for it? And the state would say, we pay for all the caseworkers. Well, no, this was something that the courts had just sort of worked in. And so, I mean, it was all coming out of local dollars, but it was worked through that particular budget. Then when the state said they were going to take over that budget entirely, we were like, oh, how are we going to pay for these? Or juvenile, there were 4. Within the DCS budget. And that's when I can remember right in the middle of the conversation here during budget time, and Judge Galvin and I went out in the hallway and I said, look at the legislation. I believe we could cover those juvenile probation officers with this special purpose money, or we would have, and there was nothing in that budget originally for juvenile probation. So when you look at how the budget went up, it was not intended when we first put it together to cover the probation officers.
No, that was actually, there was a huge, I mean, that was kind of a big public controversy when it happened too. I mean, that was, Linda remembers. Yeah.
Well, if we hadn't done that, I don't know how we would
Oh,
have
it was the
covered
right,
it.
it was definitely the right decision, but no,
So for people who think I just don't want to provide for services, I worked hard to get that done. Just thought I'd say good for me.
Yeah, sometimes those controversial decisions get better with time. All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes,
Counselor Wiltz. Motion passed.
safety lit.
Okay.
Public safety led.
You're good. You are right. Whew. Council, I move to open. I'm tired, so I'm delirious right now. Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 1170-0226 Public Safety Lit Probation with a category request of personnel $221,876, supplies $0, services $312. Services $312,780, capital $0, for a total budget of $534,656.
Second.
Okay. The increases in this budget are the full-time self-insurance, some increase to probation officer, the part-time POAs, as I've mentioned earlier, and half of the community corrections security with Crimson Security, and that's it.
Questions, comments from counselors? All right, I'm looking. I'm not seeing any. All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, we'll go to court alcohol drug user fees.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2504-0000 Court Alcohol Drug User Fees with a category request of personnel $162,194, supplies $10,000, services $47,100, capital $2,000, for a total budget of $221,294.
Second.
Right.
Okay. Court alcohol and drug user fees can only be used to support the court alcohol and drug program, salaries, and operating expenses for our staff. So it's very limited. So the increases are full-time self-insurance, an increase in travel training, and the cost increase in special services for advertising, and that's it.
Yep. We'll go to questions, comments from counselors. Not seeing any. We'll go to a roll call vote on this budget.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, now problem-solving court user fees.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2506-0000 Problem Solving Court User Fees with a category request of personnel $13,457, supplies $2,000, services $38,050, capital $2,000, for a total budget of $55,507.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, I mentioned earlier about getting more grants. So this is one area we did. In the past, we were only able to apply for up to $10,000 for drug court. That was it. That was the maximum, and we used it for drug testing supplies and bus tickets and things like that. But because we have 4 problem-solving courts, we were allowed to apply for grants for each of the 4 problem-solving courts. So with that, we have been able to buy drug testing instant cups for the problem-solving court. So it's not the most fun thing to do, but the instant cups, if it's negative, it's a screen, it gets poured out, and we don't have to send it to the lab, so it saves cost. So the problem-solving court people are not paying anything. We're not charging them.
Charging them anymore. We're not charging them for Insta cups, which is a huge saving to
Wow.
them as well.
That's big.
So, yeah, it is. It really is.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's interesting because I think people have different perceptions about people who are in problem-solving courts. And the problem-solving court people, we're thrilled because it does make a big difference to them. And so we were very pleased to be able to do that because it's a big help to our people who are in those courts.
So now we only have to send for confirmation if the test comes back, if it's positive, the instant test, then we do send it to the lab, and that costs us $25. So previously what they were paying was $10 for the instant cup, and then if it was positive, then they'd have to pay the $25 for the lab. So it was quite costly for people, especially if they tested positive. So at this point, our problem-solving court, Anthony might know better than I do, but the positive test rate is right around 4% or sometimes less. Compared to the department as a whole, just regular probation is more in the neighborhood of 30 to 32% positive rate.
Which is why we have 4 problem-solving courts.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, so it makes a difference. The accountability makes a difference, and people who are in problem-solving court will tell you that, I mean, they know they're going to be held accountable, and a 4% positive rate is very low.
That's incredible.
So anyway, that's problem-solving court fund. It can only be used to support the problem-solving court. So we did do some increases in travel training and costs for advertising, but we're not asking for anything more out of this because we are getting much more grant support for problem-solving court.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Counselor Wiltz.
4%. That's amazing.
You should come and see it sometime. Just saying. I mean, really.
I'm seriously about
the
ready
things
to-
that I've done in the years that I've been in the system, the problem-solving courts are the most rewarding thing that we do. They are the most frustrating that we do as well.
Yeah.
Very frustrating, very time-consuming as well. But they are the most rewarding
So
thing.
I am going to come and visit.
What I'd like to do is the next time we have a graduation is invite you to the graduation and then invite you to say a few words, because that would mean a lot to my participants as well.
Wow, that's great.
It would mean a lot to them to have any one of you come and any one of you speak.
I'd be honored.
It would mean a great deal to them. It really would, and it would, yes. So you'll be hearing from me. Thank you.
My question is, would you have more people going through problem-solving courts if you had more capacity?
Yes.
Okay.
More money, more ability. Yes, I would.
I mean, it just seems like
Yes.
a no-brainer.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The prosecutor's office is very supportive of the problem-solving courts. The defense bar is supportive of the problem-solving courts. But yes, I mean, we can only do what we have capacity to do. And we were concerned when the level 6s didn't have to go to prison. We were concerned because that it would be less of an incentive. And for a little bit it was, but then really it's not. So, but yes,
So what besides money would impact your ability, your capacity? Like,
truthfully, it would be personnel as far as case managers, because I need to have case managers. I mean, as for the rest of it, probably not so much, because we have court in the courtroom and the case managers meet with them but the more participants we would have to add case managers, because one of the reasons we can do so well is because of the relationship that they develop with their case manager and the time that the case manager puts into this workload, because it is very intense. They start off seeing their case manager every week, if not more frequently, if they're having issues. The case managers work with the treatment providers. We have the team that has treatment providers. I mean, that's the other thing about problem-solving courts. It is a really good, you can see the relationship of where we deal with other agencies, other treatment providers, other places, to be able to get the assistance we need for the people in the program. And, you know, while I'm on the subject, I'm going to say that in each of my courts, including my Veterans Court, there are services that we can get for people more quickly because they're in the criminal justice system than if they were not in the criminal justice system, simply because of the relationships and the supervision that comes with the participants when they go do other things, when they do enter other programs, when they're involved, if they're staying at, you know, if they're staying in a residential facility or whatever. It's because with them comes us, the team, and the supervision. And we're very cognizant of making sure that the people we place and the people we go, that we are doing supervision so that they are not being a problem for the places that they are and the treatment providers.
I thought you were done.
One more. How many case managers do you have across the 4 courts?
6.
6, I think, right?
6, 3 for drug court, 1 for veterans court, 1 for reentry court, and 1 for mental health court. Did I add?
Yeah, 6. 6. And then there's a coordinator.
And then coordinator, Steve Malone.
Steve Malone.
Thank you. There's a lot to think about and a lot of possibilities, you know?
Yes, thank you. I think about them all the time.
I bet you do. I bet you do. I tell you what, and then I will shut up, I promise. But I've been the liaison to these folks this year, and you will have to fight me to give that up, because I have learned so much, and I feel like I know this much. I am still, every single time I go to one of the meetings, and I'm like, so how does that work? Really? You know, just mind-blowing stuff all the time. So, and in awe of all you actually get done and how you do it. And so, anyway, I'll
But I said it on Tuesday, and I meant it. The reality is that problem-solving courts couldn't exist. What we do couldn't exist without the cooperation and the willingness and the openness of the county council. It just could not. And I also go out and talk to other colleagues and talk to people from other counties and other places, and we're fortunate. We are very fortunate, and we know that, and we appreciate that very much, and we appreciate your interest, and I'm serious. Any one of you, if you ever want to come to a graduation, but I will be contacting you, because really, it would mean a lot that you were there, and then you can hear, because we talk a little bit about how they began and then where they're ending up. I'm very proud of them. I think it takes a lot of courage to enter into a problem-solving court, a lot of courage on the part of the participant, because you have to do a lot of work, and you have to do a lot of work on your issues. And as I say to them, there's a lot of people walking around in the world who are never going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, now I'll shut up.
Counselor Iverson?
I'm going to volunteer that I have attended a graduation. I cried. It's very touching. I will also maybe indulgently ask you a question. A little bird has told me that it might be the 25th year of one of these courts.
Wow. Next year, it's going to be the 25th anniversary of drug treatment court, and actually it's this year, and we are going to do something, but what we're talking about doing, I would really like to make more of a celebration, and a celebration of the participants and the past participants. So now we're looking at the spring, so that we can have it in better weather, and then we can have the emphasis being on the participants and their accomplishments, and not inviting a bunch of like stuffy speakers to speak. So we will
calling
certainly-
stuffy?
No, I'm not calling you stuffy. I'm actually talking about like on a national level, because typically with these kind of things, you try to find somebody on the national level to come and talk about drug treatment courts, and with all due respect to them, that's fine, but we all understand what these are. So I'd like to make it a little bit more fun, and so we're going to wait till the spring, because I happen to know somebody who owns a hot air balloon. And so we'd like to do tethers, under the whole all rise theory, that we rise together and stuff like that. So, and I'm going to have a couple of graduates. I've got one who's a disc jockey, and he'll be graduated by then, so I can ask him to come, because he can't do that while he's still in the program, and that kind of thing. But you will all definitely be invited. Yes.
Thank you.
So fun.
Do you have anything else,
No,
Counselor?
we need to get back to the budgets.
All right.
You do.
Well, these numbers are incredible. And when we talk about programming, other things to support, I think you chase the numbers that work. And 25 years of that is incredible. Let's go to a roll call on this, I think, if there's
I've been very patient.
All right, go for it.
Okay, I do recall when Judge Todd, as we all remember, he wanted that problem-solving court
No, absolutely,
so
he
bad.
did not. Not to interrupt you and not to be rude, but no, he did not. Judge Todd had to be talked into a drug treatment court.
Well,
when he
well,
got
pardon me,
one, he was very
whatever
enthused
he
about
said
it.
to you
Yes.
might not have been
No,
what
actually,
he
he didn't
said
say it
to
to me.
me.
He actually said it.
But-
He started this before. He actually started this before I became a judge.
But what I wanted to say, as nicely as I can, please, that one of your staff members went to the training session that we had at the convention center to learn how to write grants. And she wrote a grant for this program, and long-term employee. And I'm just
Is it
saying,
Ellen? Yes.
that makes the difference when you have people who are so dedicated that they want to do whatever it takes to make it work. So whether that be some other judge or whoever wants to, I'm just want to say kudos for the staff who said, I'm going to go get the money to make this work. But the other question I had was, is this for the grants that you are getting now, which is a whole lot more than
Right.
what started out with. Does this require you to take people in for these services that are not Monroe County residents?
No, it doesn't require us to. We are able to if they're accepted by the judge, and our Veterans Court grant is a regional grant, actually.
Right.
So it has Lawrence County, Owen, I'm trying to remember, Greene. So that's a regional grant.
Right, that part. But I guess more it was like the
We're not,
drug.
we're not required. No.
Because there was that last year, year before, that the state said no longer could someone just go to, when they released them from the DOC, they were no longer going to just take them wherever they wanted to go unless where they wanted to go had a problem-solving court that would take them. So is that still, are you working with them on that issue?
No.
Okay.
We've never had that request.
Thank you.
I do have a Greene County person in Veterans Court that we took. And it's the only problem-solving court person that Greene County's ever actually allowed to go into a problem-solving court. But we're not required to.
Okay. All right. Looks like we're ready to move on to a roll call on this budget.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
Let's go to adult probation user fees.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2508-0000, Adult Probation User Fees, with a category request of personnel, $228,840, supplies, $5,000, services, $9,500, capital, $2,000, for a total budget of $265,340.
Second.
All right.
Okay. Adult probation user fees can only be used by statute to supplement adult probation operating expenses. I also want to point out, this budget is interchangeable with the court alcohol and drug services fund that you've already appropriated, because we have a unified probation department that our entire adult probation division is our court alcohol and drug program. So they're all trained, they're all alcohol and drug professionals. And so what we try to do, and this is kind of on Anthony, every month we get projections of how, and how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. And if one budget, between this budget and the court alcohol and drug program budget, whichever one's doing better, that's where we pay bills from. And other than salaries, which we have to pay, but if there are optional things such as supplies or services, we go by which of these two funds is doing better with the user fees. The increases in this budget, full-time self-insurance, travel training, and cost for advertising, and that's it.
Okay. Questions, comments from counselors? Looking, I'm not seeing any. Okay. Let's go to a roll call on this budget.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
And counselors, we've got three more items under this budget grouping, and then we'll take a recess to get stretched for the next portion. All right.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2509-0000, Juvenile Probation User Fees with a category request of Personnel, $5,383, Supplies, $3,000, Services, $10,000, Capital, $1,500, for a total budget of $19,883.
Second.
Brady?
Okay. These juvenile probation user fees can only be used to supplement juvenile probation operating expenses. And just to remind you that the judges have eliminated all non-mandatory juvenile fees, which that includes this. So there will be no more new money coming in. It's possible somebody may feel guilty about something they owed from 20 years ago, and they might come in and pay it, but no more new money's coming into it. But we do have a small cash balance in it, so we did increase the travel training a small bit, and that's the only increase.
Okay. Questions, comments from counselors? I'm looking here, looking there. All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, next up, project income user fees.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 2510-0000, Project Income User Fees with a category request of Personnel, $563,818, Supplies, $56,750, Services, $55,000, Capital, $2,500, for a total budget of $678,068.
Second.
Ms. Brady?
Okay. The project income is a community corrections user fee fund. This is our biggest user fee fund that we have, and this budget is a complementary budget to our community corrections grant. Back when we got our first grant, actually we just are celebrating our 40th year of getting community corrections grant and having community corrections program. So long time. And at the beginning, when community corrections grants existed, there was no such thing as project income. The grant paid for 100% of community corrections. That ended over the years, and then user fees became a thing. And so at this point, as we've already talked about, the grant has been flatlined, so the user fees have had to take up for the past 6 years the COLAs, increases in fringes, anything that the grant doesn't pay for. And the grant did used to pay for electronic monitoring, drug testing, a lot. It's all salary now. That's it. So we know we're dealing with a flatline budget for next year with the community corrections grant. We already know what we're getting. So our increases in project income are going to be for the COLA, if there is a COLA, and self-insurance increases, FICA and PERF, and so we did put a small travel, travel training increase. But other than that, tried to flatline it as much as possible.
Okay. Let's see if we've got questions or comments from counselors. Counselor Hawk.
Yes. Is this the budget that at one time, people, if they got in trouble for doing whatever, and depending on the person, they would be assigned to, I know that at one point in time, they were supposed to be helping shovel the snow. And
Talking about road crew and public restitution.
Right, whatever you call it. And do they not do that anymore at all?
Well, so road crew ended because of budget cuts, because the DOC will, quite a few years ago, decided, they would not fund road crew or public restitution programs because they didn't see that as diverting from prison. So it was on the locals to fund that, and so we were funding it from user fees. Well, there was just no way we could keep up with funding all the staff that we had for road crew and for public restitution. So road crew ended quite a few years ago. But we do have a public restitution program where people still do community service work. They get assigned to agencies or government entities to do their community service work. So that's still happening.
Okay. But not like cleaning up along the road or doing that kind of thing, because it takes too much.
Road crew ended because of when the DOC cut, and we just could not keep up with it with user fees, right?
Other comments, other questions? Okay. Seeing none, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right, next we'll go to offender transportation.
Council, I move to open for discussion and review Fund 4916-0000, Offender Transportation, with a category request of Personnel 0, Supplies 0, Services $3,000, Capital 0, for a total budget of $3,000.
Second.
All right.
Okay, this is my annual shout out to Eric Spoonmore. This was his former counselor. This was his favorite budget of all the budgets. The fund can only be used to retake probationers who violate probation in another state, and we have to go retake them. We have never used any money from this fund. We have never had to go retake anybody so far. So another budget year to hello, Eric Spoonmore.
Probably watching. He's very proud. Comments, questions?
Could you just do that with all the funds? Just leave it, just don't spend it. That works.
Right. Well, seeing none, let's go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right. By my record, that concludes you all.
That's it, thank
Can
you.
I say one thing before
Yes.
I leave? This has got to do with the conversation that we had on Tuesday. I've got some numbers for you.
Awesome.
With level 6 felonies, there is nobody in the Monroe County Jail being held on one level 6 felony. They may be there on level 6 felonies and a level 5. They could be there on a level 6, a couple of level 6s. There are 10 right now in the jail serving time. One of them was sentenced by one of the judges. The other 9 are probation violations. And when I tell you that they're on probation violations, it's because there were multiple probation violations. And there are 10 of those. Of all of those, however, the sentences were 180 days or less. There was nobody sentenced there to more than 180 days. And remember that with level 6s, you get day-for-day credit time. So for every day you serve, you get 2 days towards the sentence. So when we're talking about programming, when we're talking about treatment, they will be, especially the PTRs, they will be looked at, if possible, to be going into some other kind of treatment when they're released. But there is nobody there on a level 6 that is there for longer than 180 days at this time. The other thing, however, that I think is significant that I wanted to bring to your attention is there are 17 inmates waiting to go to the Department of Correction. There is an inmate that has been waiting to go to the Department of Correction since June.
What?
Now, that is up to the Department of Correction. The Department of Correction only accepts people on certain days and according to their schedule. You cannot take them to the Department of Correction and just drop them off. So again, I thought that was significant enough to bring to you. So when you talk about sentencing a level 6 to the DOC, even if we were to do that, if it took them June, July, August, September, 4 months to come and get somebody, by the time they came and got somebody, they wouldn't have any time to be doing much of anything. Anywho, they might have a little bit. But I did want to let you know that as you're looking at jail numbers and looking at what jail numbers mean, but we did look to see about the level 6s. And because of pretrial release, to see a level 6 in jail just because they're still there after an initial hearing for more than a couple days or so we cannot imagine happening. Not with pretrial release, not with one level 6. It could be multiple level 6s, and Councilmember Hawk is right. There are people in that jail that have been gotten there released, and I will admit this to you, under the pretrial release committee policies that we enacted when we began pretrial, we have a policy that if you have 3 or more pending cases and you come on the 3rd, we will hold you on the other 2. If you commit another violent crime, we will hold you, and typically we will do that. But I will admit to you, there are people who have probably 5 or 6 pending cases for criminal trespass that's relatively minor or whatever, and we have them and we let them go again until we say finally, all right, we got to get these resolved. But I just wanted to make you aware of that because it was something that came up and while you're looking at numbers, but we did look at the number of DOC, people waiting for the DOC because they've been committed, but again, that's a but it is, again, it's not something that we can force the Department of Corrections to do. The sheriff cannot do that. It's what the Department of Correction does. And the last thing I'm going to say with a smile on my face is Field of Dreams is one of my favorite movies. And I will say this to you, if you build it, whatever number you build, we will not fill it because you have built it. It would be unethical for us to do that. We do not sentence people based upon if there is room in the jail, if there is not room in the jail. Is there room in the jail? Then great. We'll put more people in the jail. We can't do that. We look at what it is and what this appropriate sentence is and what happens. Where they go after that, once they are remanded to the custody, they are remanded to the custody of the sheriff, and it becomes the sheriff's responsibility. Now, we all live in this community. We all talk together in this community. We work together in this community. And as I said on Tuesday, we in this community truly believe in rehabilitation, in services, in treatment, in trying to help people be their better selves. So, but, you know, you're not going to make me be able to watch Field of Dreams again in the same way. But in all seriousness, just because there are beds, right now we are under the capacity of that jail. We have been under the capacity of that jail for quite a while. So because we know there's availability doesn't mean we're going to go, oh, yay, let's just start putting people in the jail. We're not going to do that. We ethically cannot do that. So.
Thank you.
But I thought since you're looking at numbers, you might want to know that we looked at the numbers. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
We can help you in another way. Let me know because we can certainly look at our numbers.
I really appreciate that because I felt like that you had promised to bring that to us. And I've heard from others that, well, level 6, not much of whatever. Well, let me tell you what, if you have someone who comes on your property and trespasses on your property and you're frightened, you don't think it's a little thing. And I have several friends who have ended up leaving their business from downtown because the criminal trespass. That's not a little thing.
And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying.
think
What
it
I am
is proper
saying is.
whatsoever to indicate that this is not important to the public, because it is. We hear that all the time. And so whatever we need to do to try to make the streets safer, the community feel safer, and welcome visitors here as well, I think that's something we all have a stake in. So
Oh, we
thank you.
do, and I'm not saying that we're treating criminal trespass as a minor problem. What I am saying is depending upon where the trespass is, the mental state of the person, what we can do with the person, we look with all that as well. But yes, do we recognize that that is a significant problem in this community? Yes, we recognize that as well. And we're also looking at solutions to try to, and we all sit on committees to try to address what that is and to see what we can do as a community to help with that, because it is an issue.
Thank you very much, Judge, and
Thank
thanks
you.
all of you.
Thank you very much for your time.
This is very instructive as always. Council, we're going to go to a recess for 10 minutes and then come back together to take our last two items on this agenda for the evening. And I'm going to call us back together for the sixth budget session here. We're at item 11. And that is the legal department, and this is the memo. Councilor Hawk referenced this earlier, and Ms. Turner King, I think, is going to elaborate just a little bit on it regarding our ongoing FLSA issues. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Turner King.
I'm gonna share the PowerPoint that I think you've seen before. Hold on, that's not what I wanted to share.
Oh, God.
Okay, so this PowerPoint should not come as a surprise because it's the identical to the one that you've seen in July.
Hey.
So it kind of briefly recaps that there's going to be changes to the Federal Labor Standard Act for exempt employees. FLSA establishes the overtime rate of 1.5 times an employee's regular rate for hours beyond the 40 hours work week, but exempt employees aren't held to those regulations. So this kind of determines what is a non-exempt and exempt employee. And I'm rushing through this because you heard it in July, but if you want me to slow down, please tell me to. This slide explains that an exempt employee is determined by a salaries test and a duties test, but here's the more important bit. Okay, so prior to July, the minimum for exempt employee was at $35,568. As of July 1st, it went up to $43,888, and as of January 1st, it's going to go up to $58,656. Then it will increase every, I think it's 2 or 3 years thereafter. So that leaves council with this choice of what to do. And you have a couple options. You can make employees who are exempt non-exempt. Remember, you can't go vice versa, so that you can't make non-exempt employees exempt, but that is one option. So what I did was I went through with the help of Employee Services and Council Office, and I identified all of the salaries that I believe are of exempt employees who are below the minimum for January. And when I looked at these positions, I looked at the base rate, not if someone was at a 3-year level or an 8-year level, because if someone who's at a 3-year level leaves tomorrow, then we're gonna have to deal with this problem throughout the year. And it just made sense to deal with it all now. So what we determined is that I think there's about 20 positions, which are actually displayed on a very tiny graph on the screen. I don't know if that helped, but we'll see. So the first one is the internal auditor. This position is at a Pat B and 40 hours. So in the third column in this chart, I identified potential options for council to consider. So one option would be to reevaluate the job description for this position. However, we just did that. The other option would be to make this person non-exempt, which in speaking to the auditor, I don't think there's too many concerns on her end for that to happen. And then the third option is to tie this position, or to make this position an SO and tie it to a Pat D. I will remind you that WIS greatly frowns upon doing that very thing. The next one is the family court coordinator. It's a 35-hour. Even if you move this position to 40 hours at the current salary, it would not meet the FLSA minimum. So you can look at making that position non-exempt. In speaking to the courts, I don't think there's too much concern about that. The other option is to reevaluate that job description because there's some history as to why that person is exempt, which is long before Molly came to the council office, so you'll have to ask him.
Okay. You want me to elaborate?
Well, if it's
Okay.
relevant.
So what
I'm sorry.
happened? Sorry, caught me with my mouth full. So what happened? This particular position, when it went through the county-wide evaluation, was written to include, and what is the degree that you hold?
Juris Doctorate.
Juris Doctorate, which is for the attorney. The council, which would mean that when the evaluation came back with the job description, that made that position an EXE. And after discussing with the courts in this, that position does not require that attorney position or that attorney degree. So rather than going back and having WIS redo it, we just kept the current job description and move forward with it. So it has not technically been reevaluated without that degree. So I would suggest that it goes back to WIS, be evaluated, and see where it comes back at.
I
Would be
remember
my
that
recommendation.
The family
The
court
family coordinator.
And the current Pat C classification includes a requirement that the person has a JD?
No. No, when WIS brought, we just kept the old job description that was done prior to the 2021 evaluation.
And so there's an individual in this position who holds a JD, and that's the issue? I mean, I'm confused as to why we...
But the problem is, you don't pay someone for the amount of education or degree that they have unless it is needed for the job. You see, I mean...
Right. I mean, I think,
So,
I think what the history illustrates is that maybe this job hasn't been reevaluated in some time, and it might be a good stepping stone as a first step to have WIS to sit down, look at this job description, make sure it encompasses what this person does, and that it's classified appropriately.
Completely agree. I mean, if it didn't go through any kind of scrutiny at during the overall WIS reclassification project.
But I will also say that we looked at the amount of comp time hours or flex time or how many hours this person's working over 80 hours. And I think in a year's time, employee services said we're like at 12. And so if this was a non-exempt position, I don't know that it would be that big of a fiscal impact. The next two positions are in the health department. They're both Pat Ds and they're both managers. These two positions could be fixed to meet the FLSA minimum by moving them to 40 hours because Pat D 40-hour hourly salary meets that minimum. You could look at making them non-exempt, and all of them will say you can make this an SO position, but that's probably the worst idea according to WIS. The next series of positions in this memo is in the probation department. And these are the adult probation director, the CASP director. All of the positions in probation impacted by this are director or supervisory positions. So I've spoke to the courts and Ms. Brady, and one potential solution that easily fixes these probation positions is to require a minimum of 3 years of experience. They're all supervisory positions. They already had 3 years of experience, so this wouldn't, like everyone currently in the position meets that requirement. And then tying that position to a 3-year level probation salary will meet the FLSA minimum.
Thank you, Linda Brady.
So no change to anybody currently employed in any of those positions?
I think everyone currently is above a 3-year experience level. Yes.
As a director, one would expect.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you would change the job description.
Correct. And because and that's not a change that would need to go to WIS. So we could change the job descriptions that would guarantee a minimum of a 3-year probation salary, which is above that FLSA minimum.
We're lucky with this.
As long as someone didn't come forward and say, oh, now we have this chance of getting someone, they don't have 3 years experience, but let's go ahead and do it.
Have you heard that before?
What? That never happens.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Just kidding.
What's the next one?
Oh, so the next one is the executive assistant in the public defender's office. And I'm gonna so the option is see if that job description needs reclassified or make that position non-exempt. I have talked about neither option with the public defender's office. I know the person holding that position has expressed multiple times that she would like to look at her job description, but that didn't come from Mr. Hunt. So that's a conversation I think we need to have with the public defender's office to see if, they have concerns with moving that position to non-exempt or if we need to look at alternative solutions. The next one is, of the list, the ones that I was most surprised by. So the director of Veteran Affairs is a Pat B. And so I've spoken to Mr. Miller. He has got job descriptions from other counties, and he's going to update his job description because he said there were duties that he was already performing that weren't accurately reflected in there. So we're going to work on his job description, but it would have to get to a Pat D level to meet that minimum. You can make it non-exempt, but I will remind you that one thing that the Veterans Affairs Office is really good about is they attend a lot of after-hour events. So if he has to start flexing his time, it's going to lead to potential closures during the day in the office, which no one wants. So if any of the ones on this make sense to make it an SO, I think it's probably that one. But I'd like to look at the job description first, if that's my recommendation, if that's what you would like to do.
And he's already getting other job descriptions from around the state.
I mean, even beyond looking at it from an FLSA purpose, I think it makes sense to look at his job description because it doesn't reflect what he's doing.
Pat B. That's so weird.
Did we look at it during the WIS study?
Yes, we did, and at the time, there was a different person in there. I don't believe they were doing as many of the events or duties that is currently, because Mr. Miller has stated that he is doing things that's not even reflected in the job description.
Yeah, okay.
So I believe we are working with Mr. Miller to update that, to go through the PAC process. So.
And so the next series of positions are all at YSB. They're at 40 hours. You could make these positions non-exempt. There's some concern about that because they frequently cover when YSB has vacancies, and that residential specialist positions rather frequently vacant and other positions cover it, so they might occur a lot of non-exempt hours, but I haven't really looked at that on it yet. at the risk of Michelle throwing something at me, you could create a YSB-specific grid. That somewhat makes sense because YSB is unique in the sense that it's a 24/7 facility, and the only other 24/7 facility that we do have is the jail, and it has its own grid. And having its own grid might cure some issues that are unique to YSB.
They've come to PAC quite a bit.
They do. You try to an SO, but this is where I will say some of the problems on this list, a majority of the problems on this list that are positions of a Pat C at 40 hours, salaries would meet the FLSA minimum with the 4% COLA. So if you did a 4% COLA across the grid, the rest of these problems go away mainly.
Well, that's not true.
There's the motion for
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but it leaves two.
Two.
It'll leave the director and the internal auditor.
That is
It's just one possibility.
just an awfully expensive cure for,
Yeah,
for
right.
a relatively
Right,
small
right.
problem.
This is, yeah, a solution, trying to find a problem.
Well, it's a real problem, but I mean,
Well,
it's,
but-
yeah,
but-
it's a very expensive cure when a less
Right.
expensive cure is
I mean, with the
available.
states saying 3%, are we gonna say 4% because we've got some people we don't know what to do with? Whatever.
So, I have a question.
Yes, go for it, please. We're informal at this point.
Okay. It seemed that way, but then I realized, I don't know.
I started by
No, it's-
interrupting.
According to the memo part right before that chart, which thank you for the table, that lays things
Table's
out
really-
really clearly. So first of all, thank you. That helps immensely. You highlighted the 4% COLA solution and that the PAP C positions at 40 hours would meet that. And
So that's all of YSB, the public defender. It'll leave the director position in veterans. All of your probation officer positions are going to be remedied by adding that to their job description.
yeah, I kind of agree with the whole, that's an expensive solution.
Yeah.
I just threw it out as one solution and the slew of others offered.
Oh, clearly, I get it, yeah.
The deadline is January 1st of 2025 to resolve
Correct.
these issues. Does resolution include PAC is working on it? Or does resolution?
By January 1st, the salaries have to be at the FLSA minimum if they are exempt employees.
Yeah.
We have, so if we're
mean,
going to go
it-
down like the
it'll
PAC
just
route
happen,
where
like,
we're
in
reevaluating job
salary
descriptions,
Budget.
we have 3 more meetings.
Correct. Correct.
We would have to
But
work
there are
very
some on here that
expeditious.
can be, like the probation change won't need to go to WIS. Council can do that.
Have two.
If you move the health department to 40 hours, that wouldn't require WIS action. So I mean, it depends on which path you take on each position as to how quickly it can be remedied. The WIS path will take longer.
So you're saying that we need to have this be part of our adopted salary ordinance?
Yes.
And
Yes.
ready to be paid on
January 1st.
Yep.
Got it.
Yes.
This is in the mix of all those things. Yeah, Councilor McKim.
So the exempt versus non-exempt, refresh my memory, is that that's something the council can just do?
You
If it
can
meets
move
the
an
legal.
exempt employee to non-exempt because it's conferring a benefit. You cannot move a non-exempt employee to exempt because it's the removal of the benefit.
Okay, so but those first two positions there,
You can
we
make
could
them
just do that.
non-exempt.
And but to clarify, without WIS.
Without WIS.
Like, we can just magically say, is what you're, I just want to make sure, because I think
Yeah.
that was your point, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to defer to Ms. Shell if that would be something that would get sent to WIS.
I Anytime we make any changes to WIS, to the job descriptions, I send it to them. So,
Isn't
But
that
you don't have to.
but, no, just as an FYI, not for, so that way they have it on the record. But
I sent to, I meant pay them to look at it and weigh in, or,
It wouldn't be a request for review, it would be more of a for their knowledge.
yes.
got it. Go ahead.
Do we pay them to receive a change? Okay, well, I don't care what all you send them, as long as they
Right.
aren't charges.
But I do want to remind everybody, the sending it to them is a key component of what Margie Rice sort of said back when we went through that, because they went in and looked, and they had like 1986 this, 1992 this, and the name Monroe wrong. So
So anytime
Yeah.
and I say we, the council updates, approves job descriptions, and then there's changes made, I forward it back to WIS for their database to have on file, so they know what we've done.
yes,
So,
yeah. Go ahead, Counselor McKim, I think it was.
And that's really good, but we're also supposed to be keeping track of it, just in case, WIS goes
yep, we do,
wherever.
we're doing that here.
Because not that long ago, nobody could find the job descriptions. It's like, oh, we've lost them. So we can't ever let that happen again.
So it seems to me that it just disappeared.
I took it down, I'll put it back up.
That you had pretty easy and good solution for everything other than the family court coordinator and the Veterans Affairs director. Is that right?
And those YSB positions, I don't know whether between creating a new grid or making them non-exempt, between those two, I don't know which is the better path.
The grid seems like it makes more sense given the 24-hour nature of the facility.
And I did ask Employee Services, which I know they're working on, to kind of run some reports to reflect how many hours over the 80-hour work week these positions are working, to kind of give us an idea of, if they were non-exempt, how many comp time hours they would be incurring.
I get the feeling Kim doesn't like the idea of another grid.
She does not.
Don't, but I do,
Well,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
but
has
it's
anyone
still-
talked to YSB about any of this?
I've not talked to YSB, but I have talked to the judge about this.
Okay. Have you talked to the department head for all of these positions?
I've talked to Mr. Miller and the commissioner's office. I've not spoke to the PD's department yet, and then I spoke to Bree. So yes, all but one.
Okay.
Most of these positions are in the courts. Well, I don't know that we've talked to the health board. I forgot about the health department on there.
Did you speak with Ms. Kelly? Yep.
I will speak with Dr. Pritchard and the health board, because that would be a decision within their purview.
Yeah, but a heads up to the department heads also. I'm more looking at it like that. I mean, and I agree with Councilor McKim that, to me anyway, because I was just kind of going through and marking this up, there seems to be a clear winner for several of these that we might even be able to make progress on this evening. So I'm going to outline what I see for each one, and without making a motion in case I'm not there yet.
Well, and because we haven't even done the salary ordinance yet for 2025. So we're just providing input at this point to the office to come up
I
with
think
the
my
salary.
goal tonight was to refresh your memory, identify the positions, and then see if you needed anything additional that would be beneficial in deciding which path to take for each position.
Well,
But
I think we need to move on a couple of these issues if they actually do involve having WIS review something.
And they affect the budget, so.
Yes, and so the one, Mr. Miller, I have an appointment set with him on the 27th to work through his job description. And I think I can speak to the courts about the family court coordinator. That's the only two that I think would be beneficial to go back to WIS. The internal auditor just went to WIS and had changes made, and it still came back as a Pad B. So
Right.
out of all of them, I think you're looking at 2 potential WIS reviews.
Okay, so you don't need a motion to move forward on any of these things?
I don't think so, because at this point, I'm just information gathering and was going to circle back.
If we're going to approve a budget, we need to have the 40 hours over 35 reflected in that budget. So I don't know, like, why we would wait to, I mean, we could say effective on January 1st in our new budget, but
I'm happy to call Lori and Dr. Pritchard and talk with them. I think they were, I mean, I can try tomorrow.
okay. So I think, though, we should say, I mean, we need to agree that that's what we want to do for those positions, right?
Let me ask
By
this.
the time we pass a salary ordinance, yeah.
Yeah.
Which means tonight would be a good time to say, hey, go forth, talk with the health board and Lori, and let them know that what we want to do as a council is this. We suggest this in order to solve this problem. Does that make sense?
I might throw it a different way.
Okay.
Is there anyone that objects to anything that you've heard so far from sort of this way of dealing with each of these positions?
Absolutely.
Is there anyone who wants to offer any more additional input on these positions? Yes, Councilor Munson?
I noticed for YSB that each of the positions was Pat C, so that doesn't look like a really complicated grid, because
No, it's just having another grid that I got to worry about. But yeah, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
But my question is, am I only going to create a grid, a standalone grid for these 1, 2, 3,
4,
5 positions?
5.
Or do I do the entire YSB?
It would have to be the entire YSB.
And that's the way I'm thinking it, so.
So on that one then,
So, but not everybody at YSB has these additional hours and these weird schedules.
But are we going to treat this handful of people different than we're going to treat,
Yeah, okay.
everybody else within that department? So
I think creating a grid, too. I mean, there's got to be a change in what you're compensating them. So, yes, you're not just copying and pasting a grid over.
No, I think the grid, in essence, would have the FLSA minimum being the starting salary for
At sea.
yeah, the person coming in with no experience. So
We
like the
would-
first.
create it like we do the jail?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would just have to figure out something.
So in effect, we would be impacting the salaries of more positions than
Yes.
just this. This is where I start to get very concerned. Go ahead, I'm sorry, I'm dominating.
no, okay, yeah, I guess I've reversed the way I was thinking about that. I think we need to look at what employee services says about the number of hours over, and making non-exempt is probably the best option. And if it only occasionally is an issue, then it's occasionally an issue.
Got Peter's hand down here.
And the next PAC meeting is October 1st. So whatever additions we need to make to that agenda, please do so that we can act on it expeditiously.
Well, is there anything that's waiting on PAC?
Pardon?
Or is there anything that would be waiting on?
If there's changes to, like, for example, Mr. Miller's job description, it would come to PAC. And so that's why we've scheduled meetings before the October 1st deadline to try to see if we can get something before.
And depending on the courts, we might be able to get that one back, because I know that I had talked to her, and I'm talking Lisa Abraham, about making some changes. So I don't know if she's already on that or not. So, but we might be able to get those together by October 1st.
And that's kind of why I'm a little anxious about, we got to make a decision, at least for each one of these, what the next step is, and give them some guidance, I think. It's expressing a lot of anxiety at the meetings this week.
Yeah, more so than I think that it is needed on this particular issue. I mean, I think it sounds like there are really only two complicated situations that need to be resolved, and they've already got some thoughts on that. We're not considering the salary ordinance tonight. So a lot of these changing to non-exempt would need to be included on the salary ordinance when we actually do vote on it.
And I mean, as a reminder, you can make budget change all the way up to adoption. So I'm going to work with employee services to try to get those reports as quickly as we can. I think it helps that if I can now narrow this list down more, which I can because I can remove the probation officers. And so I think I can bring information back more than likely by your next meeting.
And we can also make salary ordinance changes up until whatever. We're always amending, so whatever you adopt, I mean, we can still make salary ordinance changes afterwards.
Okay.
We just need to make sure it's in place before we start the new budget.
I've got Counselor Hawk.
Right. I thank you for the information you sent out saying this is what it would be if we, did what the state is doing, 3%. And I don't know whether everybody else has looked at, did you just do that today? When did I look at that?
I did it a couple meetings ago.
But whatever. So I don't know whether we've had time to take a look at that, but I don't think we're rolling around in extra money we don't know what to do with. So I was thinking, if we do say the 3%, then we're not going to be arguing back and forth with probation because we're all going to be on the same page. Let's say if they get 3, and we say to the employees we're going to give you 4, then does that mean we're going to give probation another 1%? And then, or what if probation gets 3 and we can only give 2 to the rest of the employees? You see what a mess you can get into. So, I mean, it would just happen to be pretty easy to say 3 so that we're all being treated the same. Of course, I know the treasurer would like for us to say 4. I don't know why.
We do have COLA next, two items down on this list. So I would encourage counselors to be thinking about that, and we can maybe articulate some of that tonight, what some thoughts are.
Sorry, so we were going to talk about that later, because I thought we were just like saying, okay, we're going home.
No. We're still on FLSA, I can't say it.
Do have one question on that then.
Yeah, what questions remain on that? I mean, I have to admit I'm starting to get lost in the details here. Yes.
Okay, so we have a public hearing on the 8th regarding budgets.
Yes.
You can still make changes, recommendations or anything. I think we have a good idea of what we need to do. I don't know, do you feel that way, Molly? And so we can come back with an update. That gives her time to talk to some other departments. I can see if we can get, some more of the WIS stuff going and that kind of thing. So we can give you an update on, okay, this is what we absolutely have to do. And then, on the 8th, if that helps.
Yes. Is there anything glaringly other than COLA related to this that is of question for you all from us?
I think other than getting some report from employee services that will show if these positions were made non-exempt, what the average amount of hours they would be incurring is there anything else council would like to see for these positions that would help council make a decision one way or the other?
I think one thing I'm hearing people say is an approximate estimated fiscal impact of the change, because the budget's down to the meanderings. What else, counselors?
The hours of overtime that we talked.
Hours and overtime. Kate?
Okay, regarding...
I guess, are you looking like across all of the positions, looking for that information, or just, obviously you said we're taking out the probation ones.
Yeah, I think once we take out the probation ones, that I was just going to focus on those. And for some of them, my first step is to go talk to the health department and see if we could just, if they'd be amendable to moving to 40 hours.
Okay.
And then
so-
I guess I could try to do a fiscal impact to show the difference between the 40 hours versus non-exempt, if that's what you want me to do.
I don't know that, do we need that?
Well, I thought I heard that a little bit from
Okay.
folks, that they were worried about the dollars, but Councilor McKim?
I mean, for health, no. I mean, for me,
Right,
for
right.
health, I would like them to be 40. I think a lot of us would like them to be 40. The question is the health board going to balk at making them 40?
Yeah, there's some pressure the other side on that one.
And so for the family court, that would be one to review for exempt. You already did that in terms of
Yes.
the overtime analysis. So
That's also why we wanted to look at the job description, because it hasn't gone to WISC in a very long time.
okay.
Well, that would have a dual kind of thing.
So it's not necessarily a fiscal impact for every single thing is the next step, I guess is my point. And I think you have the analysis for like the internal auditor and some of these other ones. I guess to me, it's like, it's not as easy as a blanket. There is a best solution for each thing. And by solution, I still mean next step. It doesn't necessarily know. But I don't really want to be voting on a budget when I don't know what we're paying. I mean, I guess we can just put 58,656 in it for everybody, but it would be good to have a more.
Then that means it is a fiscal impact question.
No, I mean, make a decision and get it into the budgets of our departments for next year so that what we're approving is already in there. It just makes sense as we're thinking about all these other things.
Well, let me ask it a different way. Okay, how much possible variance in the budget for any of the budgets that, for want of a better word, I'll say matter, because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is the variance, and will that tonight affect your consideration of a raise? Like, if the 40 hours or the additional 10 hours of health department cause you to give employees a different COLA? To me, it's a very small, I mean, we're talking about very small amounts of money. Probably the biggest deals are the veteran services and the family courts coordinator, because those are in the general fund, and there's the most mystery associated with them.
To your point, and it's not going to change my discussion points tonight. Are we deciding a COLA tonight?
I think that us talking about a COLA, having a little bit of a discussion around what maybe inclinations are, would help our staff who have been lobbying me since February on this question.
We'll start again.
They will, and I've already warned others who may sit in this seat to get ready in about 2 minutes. But yeah, I think they want to hear that, and I think that on their side, that's the work product that is the hardest to navigate, because it's gotten so much different than, back in the day where I guess it was a ledger. This is now multiple systems, multiple hours, and then we end up always having some mistake at the last second.
Yep.
And of course, that's just no fault of anyone's own. And then of course, the state says if you are 12 seconds over, you will have the tax rate of Owen County. And that we got to avoid that. Not to call them out.
Are you still on FLSA, or have we moved on to COLA? What are we talking about?
We're on FLSA.
Are we still on
Oh, I'm sorry.
Still on
Okay,
FLSA.
what I was going to say about FLSA was when we were going through some of the training on that, they had made it clear that even though it's suggested like 3 years from now, they may have another bump up, that could be changed. They changed it last time they tried to do this, so we have to not be making changes because of what's going to happen 3 years from now. We may all be blown to bits 3 years from now. But the other thing having to do with getting things ready for staff is we've got all these different positions and different changes that came from WIS and whatever, and we need to take that in consideration too. just thought I'd say that before I go home.
Anything else on the FLSA? So it sounds like we've got follow-up items and other considerations to do. Item 12 on our agenda is final budget discussions, and this is an opportunity for us to bring back any budget that counselors want to look at, see, vet, discuss, et cetera. Is there any budget that counselors would like to reopen? Yeah, Counselor Hott.
I didn't get this looked up, but
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Bring it a little.
I was trying to get out of here. Okay. When I was looking at, when it was being discussed early on in the commissioner's budget, there was the health net in there, and I'm trying to remember, but I believe that health net is covered by federal government, state government, or whatever, and really local dollars is not necessary for them to have. Now, am I remembering that right? Because it's not like local budgeting.
Say that one more time slow.
I feel like we got, no, I mean, I think
How much was that? But, well,
250. It's 250. We temporarily lowered it to 150 last year because we didn't really know what they were doing.
Well, I thought it was that their revenue is coming from a totally different place than what was it called before?
Oh, volunteers in medicine.
And so their revenue was coming from a major source, not a local source. But I may be wrong on that.
What, Medicaid reimbursements, right? Isn't that primarily what they're?
Yeah, so.
Well, it's part of a bigger entity. I don't know, there might be other things that parent company does. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
They can bill private
And
insurance.
I don't know, and I didn't even remember how much it was. I was going to throw
250.
that out there for trying to find a little bit of a raise for people. If that was $250,000, would that help? But I don't have any strong feeling one way or the other. I just thought if some group doesn't need our money, then I bet we can find people who do need it.
So one item we had, Kim, you had something in general, or pardon me, in the general fund for emergency management you wanted to bring up.
Yes, during the discussion with emergency management, and I can't remember, I'm going to pull that budget up real quick and share it with you. When Jamie was in here, she talked about how this line right here is called Emergency Management Heavy Equipment Services, and that she would like to see a different line so that it's not so narrow with regards to it can only be used for heavy equipment services. So I did an email exchange with Counselor Iverson and with Jamie, and we have come up with a solution to add an account line. And dang it, I didn't put that on here. Can you go to Lao? Sorry, but if we add the account line, and it's just called Emergency Management. I think it's disaster recovery or response or something to that effect. And then you would need to reduce line 35051 and 35052 and put that combination into this new account line.
It was EM disaster response.
But what difference does that make any difference in the budget?
That's what we had talked about during the meeting, that she wanted to create just one line to have everything in.
But I mean, that doesn't change the
It doesn't
bottom
change
line.
it's not going to change the bottom
then I
line.
don't care.
So I just needed to let you know I was going to move forward with that if that was okay with you guys.
Yeah, Cheryl, did you have something you want to?
Yeah, so I had talked to her, but nobody contacted me about this.
Well, during the meeting, Counselor Iverson said that he would reach out and work with me and Jamie about that.
I'm sorry, Cheryl.
Okay. That's okay. I just had talked to her and didn't understand what was going on. And I do have a point to make, and that is, if you use the term disaster, then you better be dealing with disasters. And I'm not sure you want it to be something as technical as a disaster in the naming of what the funds are to go for.
That's an
Sure.
interesting
No,
point.
and I think that's a really valid point. And I think to Mr. McKim's point, we can name these lines whenever we want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't have very much substantive impact on whether or not we're going to pass a decent budget or not. But I take your point it's a good point.
Yes, Councilor McKim.
Can we move on to a discussion of COLA and nitpick later?
Okay.
I mean, sorry, I don't, I'm just like.
Let's
we're
open
talking
up and talk
millions
about
of dollars.
COLA. Can we pull that up and take a look?
Okay, so yeah, this is the report that I sent everyone. This does include all of the changes that we've done with regards to adding personnel or removing personnel. So this does reflect all of those changes throughout all of the budgets. And the bottom line is...
Even tonight?
Right there.
Not tonight, though.
Pardon? Does not include tonight's changes.
Okay.
But if anything
He's not a
before that.
magician.
Yeah, I'm not that quick. So, but also with regards to COLA, we've had departments with regards to salary grids have asked about adding additional step increases of 35, 40, and 45. And we just recently added the 20 and 25 within the last couple of years. But so I don't know if that's something you guys want to look at as to how that would look on a grid and the costs.
I do
But-
not.
I don't want to
I think the discussion's on COLA.
Okay.
I think other things are not that question. And I would love to hear counselors maybe talk about COLA, thoughts about COLA, to try to get that
And
articulated.
we were asked to ask, so it was like.
I'm sure.
No doubt.
No doubt. And I know I've been asked that too.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things kind of not applying generally to everybody that have been asked for certain things that I'm not sure that we will quite get to this year.
So, so this is the charts, and as you can see, the difference at the bottom, it says the COLA proposals estimated increase. So the difference is from what you're looking at, so for column I, the pink, is the difference between what the request and what the 3% will cost, $1.3 million.
Can you go back up to the general fund? I think general fund and PS Lit are probably the two that
Okay,
are most salient to the decision.
here's the general fund. This is how much a 3% cost to the general fund.
And it says 900,000.
922,000.
Got
Percent.
3%.
And never mind.
Councilor McKim.
I'm just, I always like to just throw out what I think we should do here. I like 3.2%. I think we have used in the past, we've tried to use as a bogey that the Midwest CPI December to December. Last year, it was a very special case, and I think we did exactly what we needed to. But I think it's a good idea if we get back onto that 3.2%. The difference isn't that much between 3 and 3.2%. 3.2 is either 3 or 3.2 are fair. The city's giving 3, the state is giving 3, the federal government's giving 2. So I'm going to get less than y'all. But but I think 3.2 gets us back on track with the CPI measure we've used in the past.
And then here, let's go down to, there's public safety lit.
Public safety lit is actually the fund that I wouldn't say concerned about in the sense that there's plenty of cash balance now for the budget we're passing, but next year's council may want to rebalance a little, and of course then we may have a jail fund that may help with rebalancing that too.
Yeah.
So there are other options, but the general fund we're pretty darn close to balanced without the COLA.
So
Any other funds you would like to look at?
pretty well without the COLA.
Well, we were like 200 under, and we've cut over 100,000 today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
and that's what I was going to show you.
4B.
Let's see.
Are you going to show us where we,
Yeah, let me.
And-
like $1.2 million short, now all of a sudden we're not?
It's been sliding down.
I guess my question would be then, pretty well balanced still would mean then we're $1.2 million in deficit if we budget for COLA.
Yeah, on paper, but we always know we budget like that, and we wind up with $7 more million in cash than we had before.
In reversions.
So, Courtney and I went through, and this is the total reduction. This is the total reduction amount that we've made over the 6 meetings with regards to general fund.
How did it get?
And then you increase the levy by rebalancing the election fund levy.
Right, and so then
So
I
it
wanted to.
was-
Oh, that's in here.
Up and down, yeah.
Mhm.
They mean the.
So, we changed. Right here.
Of
There we
course
go.
it is. I see it now.
So, the new general fund amount as of tonight, where did I write that down? Right here? 52? Okay, so here is the new general fund amount with the changes that we've made tonight, so. So that's where we're at now on the Form 4B draft.
And that brought that line down even further.
And let me remind everybody that that line, that fund balance also includes $100,000 that we put in emergency management just in case, that we were just talking about, and $300,000 that we put in for juvenile detention just in case. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of squish in that budget, at least in a couple $100,000.
It always sounds much safer when you say it that way than it is.
But, I mean, but
Councilor Iverson.
that squish is important because that means that we can handle a decent number of COLA, a cost of living increase for staff. Now, the question I think before us is what level?
And then go back down to the bottom then. So, I mean, yeah, that's the good question then. What does that operating balance become for each, if that amount of COLA is added in, what is the operating balance for each of those funds? And does it put any of them anywhere near what we would consider to be of concern?
Let's see the auditor's hand over there.
Just wanted to know, I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but we have another just in case in the assessor's contractual line in the general fund.
150,000.
You're right.
Oh, wow, okay.
Thank you very much. So let me offer this to counselors. Here's what I have heard. If I were the staff trying to prepare this for us, I've heard Counselor McKim has offered 3.2. That is an amount I've heard. I've not heard other counselors yell about that or counter that, but is that an amount that you would want the staff to move forward in preparing?
There's a good basis for it.
Good basis.
It's predictable.
I am concerned that even what we just talked about, a 5.2 increase would be quite a bit. I'm very happy with that 3.2.
Okay.
Wait, oh, you thought I was going the other way? No.
No, he was heading up. Wow.
I'm going rogue this
Well,
week,
Peter,
folks.
order more pizza. We're going to be in here a few more hours. I will offer this. I will say, and I say this again. Everybody's tired of hearing this. As the son of a retired county employee, I know how much these conversations do matter, and I would love to go as high as possible. However, we know that we have a good guiding metric with the CPI. We have done a lot in the recent years to keep up. I mean, to fill vacancies and to train and to keep up and beyond. And I'm pleased that we do that because I think there was a time that wasn't readily the first answer. And I'm not blaming anyone for it. I just had heard that firsthand. So to me, the 3.2 sounds like a achievable, doable on comparison with other entities. And of course, every year's a new year to keep looking to the future, but it gets us where we need to go. I think it does. Are there any other comments on that, counselors? Yes.
I was just gonna say, like, no, I
It's picking you up.
I think it's good base.
Yeah.
Gosh,
not.
darn
That's
it.
not picking you up.
I think that's the universe way of telling me to shut up. So we could go home. I'm glad I'm extending my park time because the city ain't getting more money. Okay, so
That's on
I
the
think
record.
the 3.2 I think is a really good starting point. I think it's a good base point. I think we did a lot last year. I think the previous year with the bonuses that we did. Also, I remind council, it is the conversation of the benefits that got started in budget hearing just a year ago. We can champion that. So I think that we're on the up and up, and I do think that we are competitive with our salary in comparison to what the city is offering. And I've heard them actually say that in their meetings. So yeah, I think personally, it would make me more comfortable if we just stick with the 3.2 for now.
Go.
Counselors?
I agree.
Staff, I think you got final salary grid of the budget, or at least as close as we're going to get at this point. Okay, Counselor.
Yeah, just as, you know, we always want to kind of remind everybody that this is just preliminary and that there is, you know, there's more information that could come and more deliberations that could occur. And so, you know, nobody should be spending the extra money before.
Don't spend it until you get it.
Yeah.
Well, this here, I'm not sure which one of these is going. This early now on September 19th versus some of those previous years when we were in here with Christmas trees. Let's staff proof this thing to make sure there's something that we haven't forgotten, like, well, we're not paying anything for HVAC at the just. This lets us do that and have time for it. And that's why we're doing this early, along with everything else we're doing this month.
Yeah, and I will send something out to the departments and work with them on trying to get numbers updated so we can at least get you a good total, you know, on what that's going to look like, so.
Councilor Hawk.
Right, I just know there's been a lot of things that's apparently going to be going to Wes, and I wish you all well, but I can't right now think about how much of that should have just had come straight here. If Wes has already approved some of those positions, so we could have included those in those budgets. Because, you know, you're going to take it to PAC, and PAC's going to say, just send it on to the council, whatever Wes said, and we could have already had that included in the budgets. And
I didn't get those back till this week, So,
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
Yep, we're learning every day.
We can consider it at the hearing then.
Yeah. I can, yeah. I mean, we're going to have a PAC meeting on the 1st. We can have everything ready on the 8th at the public hearing.
And we
make
can
those-
always, and I'll throw this out, one time we did a work session that had long-term finance and full council and nobody died. PAC is all here right now and council's all here right now. We can always do about anything.
That's a good point.
And not let the process kill us.
Yep.
Some of those WIS recommendations were for no change, right? They didn't all have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like
Some
several
of them didn't
no
change.
said no change, and then there was some that there was change, and I just thought, when we were all here together, instead of having a meeting to have a meeting, we could just boom and be done. Because there's other things people had to do on the 1st.
Is there anything else that you all need from us at this point? All
You're
right.
supposed to be on the 1st.
Counselors, any comments that you have at this point? All right, I think we've said enough.
Good job, Mr.
With that-
President.
Well,
Well, thank you, Mr.
let's see
President.
the but, no, thank you. We're going to go ahead and adjourn these hearings, and we'll come back together for the budget hearings and adoption. Thank you.
We will be back.
Thank you.